When Li Qin failed to arrive for the wedding procession at the appointed hour, I knew, he too had been reborn. In my past life, I was the paragon of wifely virtue that everyone praised. I paved his path to success, cared for his parents, managed our household with thrift, and hosted guests impeccably, never a single misstep. He despised me his entire life, all because Tangiru, his unattainable first love, borrowed money from me for an abortion. Only to lose her fertility forever in that back alley clinic. His white moonlight fled abroad, becoming Li Qin's lifelong regret. But, so after rebirth, Li Qin resolved to humiliate me on our wedding day as punishment. When he finally thought the punishment was enough and came knocking with betrothal gifts again, by then, I was already 8 months pregnant and had moved to the military base with my husband. Go check outside. The auspicious hour has passed. Why hasn't the groom's procession arrived? My parents and relatives were frantic, making trip after trip to the village entrance to peer down the road. After several agonizing hours of waiting, they sent multiple groups to inquire around Li Qin's house in the neighboring village. It was finally confirmed, the Li family had backed out of the marriage agreement. Father slammed the table in fury, his eyes blazing. This is outright bullying. They're deliberately humiliating our Huayan. They immediately summoned the matchmaker. Determined to confront the Li family for an explanation, when we arrived, the gate was locked tight with no response from inside. My parents were exhausted and furious, completely drained. That very night after returning, they fell ill. The timing of my rebirth was slightly off. Watching my parents lying in bed, their faces etched with worry for me, yet my heart overflowed with nothing but joy. In my past life, I entered the Li family's household with the dowry my parents had meticulously prepared. I dutifully served my in-laws and treated my sister-in-law with kindness. The Li family was poor, and I handled all their social obligations. When my sister-in-law Liana wanted to study abroad in '95, I had to sell my courtyard house to barely cover her expenses. With the substantial dowry I brought, Li Qin rose rapidly through the ranks and eventually struck gold when opportunity came. The Lis transformed from obscure villagers to Beijing's nouveau riche, their fortunes rising with the tide. Everyone praised me as the perfect homemaker, only Li Qin refused to accept it. Our marriage crumbled under his relentless, screaming accusations. Jiang Huayan, I deeply regret marrying you. You deliberately lent Iru money for an abortion. You've ruined her life. By then, he'd already brought Tangiru back from her self-imposed exile. The two became inseparable in public, all lovey-dovey with each other, without the slightest regard for me, his lawful wife. My kind-hearted mother-in-law and thoughtful sister-in-law kept advising me, Huayan/sister-in-law, you should be more tolerant. Times have changed. What wealthy man doesn't have multiple wives? My son/brother staying loyal to you, his plain and faithful wife, is already quite remarkable. Even my own son openly took sides against me and challenged me. Mom, count your blessings. Aunt Tang can't have kids and won't compete for the inheritance. She just wants recognition. What's the harm in giving her that? Go ask around. What wealthy family doesn't have a few illegitimate children? With Aunt Tang keeping Dad occupied, he won't have the energy to produce more siblings for me. What more could you possibly want? Do you even realize how exhausting it is for me to constantly play mediator between Dad, Grandma, and Auntie every single day? I don't even know what I'm dissatisfied about anymore. My elderly parents would grieve for my plight every time they saw Li Qin's scandalous tabloid stories. My father, a retired soldier who lived by the creed men shed blood, not tears, secretly wept alone in the dead of night where mother couldn't see. He never closed his eyes until the moment he passed. That failed marriage tore my dearest family members apart with heartbreak. Their lavish displays of splendor are but gilded robes crawling with lice. None know the bitterness that gnaws at my heart. After being reborn, everyone was outraged, cursing the runaway groom. To my immense relief, thank goodness, there's still time. While my parents took people to ambush Li Qin at his home, I went to the town's marriage registry office alone, retrieved the marriage certificate that still needed official stamping. On our wedding day, I forgot to bring the stamped certification. The kind-faced female clerk said understandingly, leave the documents here for now. Once you bring me the stamped proof, I'll complete the processing for you. Saves you making extra trips. I passed the milk candies I deliberately kept in my pocket through the window, retrieved our marriage certificate that still lacked the official seal. Thank you, I'm so grateful, I said through tears while bowing deeply. On the bus ride home, we passed through a deserted alleyway. A familiar figure flashed by. Li Qin held Tangiru tightly in his arms, overwhelmed with joy. Iru, this time I won't let you face it alone. I'll take responsibility as a father. The woman blushed furiously, playfully pounding his chest. Tangiru accidentally met my gaze, then flinched in panic. I turned away indifferently, paying no further attention. In his past life, Li Qin always believed the child Tangiru carried was his. Only she and I knew the truth. It wasn't. That child belonged to Tangiru's college professor. The vivacious young girl and the refined married man fell for each other at first sight, too. Their forbidden romance intoxicated them both beyond reason. Later, the man chose fame and fortune, leaving abroad with his wife. He left without a word, abandoning her. Tangiru was devastated, and the discovery of her pregnancy sent her into a panic. She set her sights on her loyal backup Li Qin, getting him drunk in an attempt to force the relationship. I caught them in the act and put a stop to it. Tangiru knelt before me, sobbing pitifully, begging for a way out. Jiang Huayan. Please lend me some money, I'll get an abortion, I'll just borrow Li Qin's name as cover, but I swear no one will ever find out. I couldn't quite explain what drove me. Perhaps it was solidarity between women, or pity for her misfortune in love. I kept it to myself. When Li Qin woke up, he simply thought he'd shared a fleeting romance with his unattainable crush, until he learned about Tangiru's abortion and subsequent infertility. After just a few days of anguish, they came to terms with reality. Fresh in the department, he was banking on his father-in-law's connections. We were in the honeymoon phase of our relationship, that's all I know. Later, he resented me for throwing my weight around and stifling his genuine affection. They hated me to the core, humiliating me publicly at every opportunity. Among the three of us, there was never a winner, everyone back in their rightful place. Things are finally falling into order. Ever since Li Qin jilted me at the altar, Dad's been carrying this guilt toward me. There were originally two potential marriage candidates. He favored Li Qin, praising him as no ordinary talent. He had excellent judgment. Li Qin's achievements in his past life were nationally renowned. No matter how good it is, I don't want it anymore. I've thought it through. In this world, women are expected to marry eventually, even decades from now. Unmarried career women will face gossip and judgment, let alone today. If I must marry, I'll choose the safest option available. So, my dad was completely shocked when he heard I wanted to marry, citing, "Sweetheart, let's choose carefully this time. You don't have to limit yourself to these two options. I'll introduce you to other suitable matches." I shook my head firmly. "Dad, it's him. Just ask if he's willing to marry me." Thinking about my past life, I wasn't entirely sure either. He'd probably agree, right? In my past life, that dark-skinned, muscular man heard about my wedding. He came running to me, drenched in sweat, but when he saw me in my red wedding dress, he left heartbroken. Every year, I receive a remittance and various essential supplies from the same location, though the exact address was withheld. I later looked it up. It was Siding's former military outpost. A decade later, everything stopped. I thought Siding had finally come around and settled down. I was genuinely happy for him. Only decades later did I learn he'd already sacrificed his life. In my past life, his name was engraved on a tombstone in the Martyrs' Cemetery, with a small inscription beside it, "My eternal love, Huayan." Some cast me aside like worn-out shoes. Someone loved me for a lifetime within their limited years. I raised my eyes to see the man before me, sitting rigidly with his body tensed, on this day in our past life. He turned away with a heavy heart. In this lifetime, for reasons unknown, he's been stubbornly waiting at my doorstep, gazing at me relentlessly, citing, "Tough luck for you. I'm ready to marry, and you're still single. Guess we'll have to make do with each other." The man broke into a grin, his sharp features softening with warmth. "Not unlucky at all. I'd be delighted to escape the places and people I loathed. My parents took me straight to a courtyard house in Taipei. This was actually part of Mom's dowry, untouched since the day it was brought home. In my past life, my sister-in-law Limena kept making a scene about studying abroad. 3. Li Qin's face turned livid with refusal, while my mother-in-law sobbed under the blankets. The household was in constant uproar every single day. Limena begged me through tears, "Sis, please help me figure something out. Just 300,000 would do. I know you can make it happen. What else can I possibly do?" The Li family plays both good cop and bad cop. They're pressuring me to sell the house with subtle coercion, yet refuse to state their intentions outright. Even in the 90s, brides were still expected to drain their dowries to feed their in-laws' greed. It would damage our reputation if word got out. The well-preserved Sihiyuan sold for over 600,000 yuan. Limena took 300,000 yuan to study abroad. while Li Qin used the remainder to expand his business network. By the time I tried to buy back that courtyard later, the price had skyrocketed. Even if Li Qin steps in, he'd still need to weigh whether it's worth the trouble. To him, buying it from me was obviously not worth it. Mom transferred the deed of this courtyard to my name. It was decked out in festive red, brimming with joy, siding, and I got our marriage certificate and became husband and wife in the presence of our loved ones. Both sets of parents had tears in their eyes, unexpectedly. Right after paying respects to our parents, Siding was called away for an urgent mission. He was utterly disappointed, saying, "Guess we'll have to save the wedding night for when I get back." Before departure, he entrusted me with all his possessions, repeating his instructions over and over. Seeing the tension in his eyes, I smiled softly. Rising on tiptoes, I brushed a fleeting touch before pulling away. "I'll be waiting for you to come home." Siding's strong hand gripped my waist tightly. His voice hoarse. "Okay." I'd resolved to repay Siding with absolute loyalty and trust. I'll become better than my past self, more devoted, more at peace. Yet it never occurred to me that this lifetime Siding bears no resemblance to that reticent man from before. In that past life, we'd only met a handful of times. Each time, Siding remained wordless, save for those smoldering dark glances. I never sensed any emotional fluctuations in him. I believed what he needed was a composed, gracious, and dignified wife. I'm confident no one could do better than me. Can someone explain this fiery, flamboyant, clingy man to me? What on earth is going on? I haven't left the bed for a week since he returned from his mission. When passion runs high, in fury, I tried to kick him, but he caught my foot and draped it over his shoulder, leading to an even more intense. My parents and in-laws have been living together since our wedding. My mom and mother-in-law hit it off so well that they bought adjacent houses. The parents spend their days together playing chess, knitting, and cooking, never meddled in our lives, just quietly cared for us behind the scenes. The dinner table has clearly featured many special dishes these past few days: stir-fried chives with eggs, spicy kidney stir-fry, chicken soup with goji berries. My face burned crimson as I kept lowering my head further each day. Only shameless Siding still had the nerve to critique the dishes. "Mom, the chicken soup is a bit too salty." "Dad, the fish you caught today tastes muddy. Next time let it purge in clean water for a few days before cooking." No matter what request I made, both sets of parents would readily agree. Siding gloated. "Thanks to you, even if I asked for the jade rabbit from the moon, my old man would find a way to catch it for me to taste." They'd already resigned themselves to me being a lifelong bachelor. I shyly pinched his waist. That moment, instead of pulling away, he leaned his face closer. "Darling, right here on my cheek too. Just a few more kisses." These little moments are what keep me going on every mission. While I waited safely at home, his care packages and letters would arrive like clockwork every month: pressed mountain wildflowers, seashells from distant shores, breathtaking landscape photographs, and love letters overflowing with affection. "Huayan, the mountain flowers are in bloom, but none as lovely, none as radiant as you. Huayan," I whispered my love into a seashell. "Listen closely. Can you hear my voice? Huayan, every cloud in the sky carries your shadow. I miss you terribly. Huayan, I love you." Siding has arranged every aspect of my life with perfect stability. I no longer need to hustle around like in my past life just to make ends meet for the household. Now, no more worrying about meals for the family, my sister-in-law's grades, or my mother-in-law's daily herbal medicine. No more rising early to serve others or staying up late to weave clothes. Like my grandmother, I have nimble hands that can decipher even the most intricate patterns at a glance and replicate them perfectly. 4. In a past life, Li Qin's boss, a cheerful, straightforward woman, was particularly fond of the trendy fashions from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan featured in magazines. Li Qin pleaded with me to lend a hand. Despite just recovering from childbirth, I painstakingly recreated the exact same design to match her taste. The annual custom tailoring never failed to meet her expectations. For decades thereafter, whenever Li Qin faced any difficulties, that elder sister would resolve everything for Li Qin before he even asked, safeguarding his business empire every step of the way. Later, when the elder sister retired, Li Qin never visited her again, not even a single phone call. When I visited my eldest sister with the newly tailored coat, the legendary old lady lay on the porch rocking chair, sighing at me with a wistful smile. "Huayan, you, such a simple soul, what will become of you?" Remembering Siding's kindness, I resolved to repay the favor. When I learned that the mother of our leader Siding An elegant elderly lady, was particularly fond of Suzhou Hangzhou-style cheongsams. I seized every rare opportunity to meet her, working day and night to tailor several pieces. Seeing the garments I presented, with my bloodshot eyes from sleepless nights, Siding pressed her lips together, her eyes glistening with emotion. He said, "Darling, I can build my own future. I married you to give you a good life. Trust me, I'll make us proud. My wife's hands create such wonders. Pursue this as your passion or career, but never for my sake. Don't let it chain you." The vibrant, smiling face before me now, contrasted with the solemn, grieving portrait etched on the tombstone in my memory. The dichotomy was striking. My heart swells with love beyond words. My lips parted to speak. Only a string of ugh escaped me. "I'm pregnant." Siding and both sets of parents were utterly stunned yet overjoyed by the news. The grandparents rushed to the ancestral home that very night to offer incense and kowtow. "Thanks to our ancestors' blessings, that unfilial brat Siding has finally proven somewhat useful." Before returning to his military unit, Siding boasted shamelessly, "Old man, the one you should be kowtowing to is my wife. Without her, the C family line would have died out for sure." Before I could finish speaking, my mother-in-law chased me out with her feather duster. Siding reluctantly rejoined his team. Far from neglecting me, my in-laws went out of their way to take care of me. My mother-in-law heard that free-range country eggs are more nutritious than store-bought ones. I made a special trip with Mom back to the village to buy eggs. When we returned that evening, Dad's booming voice reached us before we even stepped inside. "That goddamn little bastard, I'll kill him myself. First he jilts us to humiliate our family. Now he's dragging Huayan's name through the mud. He's asking for death." Mom hurried in, simultaneously calming my furious father while explaining the situation to me. Later, ran into Li Qin's mother when passing through Lijia village. After their whole family deliberately avoided us to humiliate ours, she actually had the nerve to ask why Huayan hadn't delivered her medicine, claiming she'd run out. "Thank goodness you didn't marry into that family. Every last one of them is rotten." That sister of his, probably in college now, even had the audacity to ask why you didn't wire her money last month. A whole pack of ungrateful wolves. Li Qin's father seemed decent enough back then. Who'd have thought the rest of them would turn out so vile? Mother took a sip of water and sighed. Your mother-in-law overhearing this while holding her egg basket isn't the main concern. What worries me is them harboring resentment, though we never hid the truth from them. Hearing firsthand about their daughter-in-law being jilted at the altar must sting. If your mother-in-law speaks harshly to you lately, do try to bear with it patiently. Your father and I can both see that Siding is a good young man. This difficult phase will pass soon enough. Dad flew into an even greater rage upon hearing this. What's there to endure? My daughter did nothing wrong. If it comes to divorce, so be it. I can support both my daughter and grandchild. Silence fell between them after these words. The atmosphere grew heavy. I'm feeling uneasy, wondering if my mother-in-law will tell Siding about this. Would he misunderstand and think I'm only with him because I had no other choice? Will he be angry? Most likely, yes. Tossing and turning with worries, I finally fell asleep. Woke up the next morning to find my mother-in-law hadn't cooked or brought any food. Couldn't tell if it was relief or resignation in my heart, strangely enough. My parents weren't home either. Before I could snap out of my wandering thoughts, a clamor of voices erupted outside the door. "Let them off this time, but if that gossip monger keeps running her mouth, I'll break her son's damn legs." "Uncle, we're coming with you." Siding's away, and if we can't even handle this simple task of looking after his wife, what kind of sisters would we be, exactly? How dare that vicious woman spread such lies about Huayan, such a decent man? I'd be fuming. Next time I see her loudmouth daughter, I'll tear that lying tongue right out. Oh no, I forgot to cook for Huayan. She must be starving. This is all your fault. I told you we should have come back right after moving. Where are the hen and eggs I bought? Who's got them? Hand them over now." "Right here, ma'am." Not a single egg cracked. I held them tight the whole way. Granny later explained she never took Mother Lee's words to heart that day. She held her tongue only to avoid breaking the eggs in the basket. Hens lay few eggs in winter, yet she went door to door collecting them all to nourish me. The moment those eggs were returned, she immediately informed her father-in-law and relatives to band together and settle the score. The crowd ransacked Li Qin's home before reporting the incident to both the police and village chief. Li Qin's mother finally admitted that her earlier claim Jiang Huayan slept with my son long ago was complete nonsense. The grandmother, a retired teacher, threw dignity aside as she grabbed Li's mother and delivered stinging slaps across her face. Between slaps, she raged, Huayan is such a wonderful girl. Your son didn't know how to cherish her. Your whole family must be blind. 5. If I ever hear you slandering my child again, I'll rip your damn mouth apart. My mother-in-law slapped several $100 bills into my palm. This is compensation from that wretched woman for damaging your reputation, along with a written pledge. When the police showed up, she broke down crying and begging, saying she'd lost her mind. Don't be afraid, Huayan was siding away. Your parents will protect you. My parents rushed over upon hearing the news, both shocked and remorseful, repeatedly complaining why my in-laws didn't take them along. My mother-in-law waved her hand with dramatic flourish. We can handle our own child's grievances ourselves. I ran into Li Qin and Tang Yiru again 5 years later on a Shenzhen street. That much was obvious. Li Qin seized his second chance at life and thrived spectacularly. The two were dressed in the latest fashion, cruising in their sedan. Spotting me waiting by the roadside, they couldn't help but feel a surge of superiority. Li Qin frowned, his face tense. Jiang Huayan, my letter was just mailed 3 days ago and you're already here. You've been stalking me all along. Me, Li Qin tossed a business card impatiently. Enough, I can't be bothered to argue. Come find me at this address tonight. I've got work for you. Tang Yiru's eyes darted nervously as she bit her lip, shooting me a resentful glare. Before I could get a word out, the two got in the car, started the engine, and drove off without another word. A few minutes later, Xiao Sun arrived, drenched in sweat, and screeched to a halt. Sister-in-law. Something urgent came up with the team. Am I late? I waved my hand, reassuring him. I just got here myself. The timing's perfect. Let's go. Before getting into the car, I casually tossed Li Qin's business card into the trash. 4 years ago, I gave birth to my daughter Wan Wan. Citing received a transfer assignment to Shenzhen, thousands of kilometers away. Both sets of grandparents couldn't bear to part with their granddaughter. Yet didn't want us living apart either. Truly torn between two choices. I wasn't in a hurry, juggling childcare and college prep. I got into med school. This year, my daughter started kindergarten and made her own little circle of friends. Spoiled rotten by both sets of grandparents and acclimated to Beijing's climate, she flat out refused to move with me to Shenzhen. After getting my daughter's consent, I left her in the care of our parents and in-laws. Then came to Shenzhen with the admission notice to reunite with Citing. Perhaps the experiences from my past life affected me too deeply. Even though I still love crafting by hand, I can no longer bring myself to pick up scissors or needles. It fills me with tension. I gradually developed an interest in medicine. Citing encouraged me. Darling, with hands as dexterous as ours, if embroidery needles don't suit you, then scalpels will. Whatever you choose to pursue, I'll support you. Now. After obtaining my degree, I applied for military spouse relocation and was transferred to Shenzhen Military Hospital. Today marks my first day reporting to the hospital. Never expected to run into that jerk on my very first day in this massive city. Talk about bad luck. Li Qin's words didn't even register with me. Neither he nor Tang Yiru could stir the slightest emotion in me. So Citing and I managed both work and quality time without a hitch. Completely oblivious to the chaos unfolding on Li Qin's end, Li Qin kept checking his watch, pacing restlessly. It's almost 8 o'clock. Why hasn't Jiang Huayan arrived yet? Director Gao will be arriving in a few days. I must make a good impression. Li Qin vividly recalled those early days working under this boss. It had been nothing short of grueling. 3 years later, Jiang Huayan's tailoring skills happened to perfectly match Director Gao's tastes. By arranging Jiang Huayan's transfer ahead of schedule this time, he'd secured powerful patronage much earlier than in his previous life. The mere thought of Jiang Huayan made Li Qin snort with derisive laughter. Just like in her past life, this woman remains utterly devoted to me. Not that I mind. I had planned to give her the cold shoulder for a few years, let her stew in her own misery, but eventually, I'd still marry her. After all, in her past life, she had been utterly devoted to him, tending to his mother and younger sister with such care that they were completely satisfied. She had even borne him such an exceptional son, one who mirrored his personality in every way. In this life, after he saved Yiru, she also gave him a son. The only regret was that the boy bore no resemblance to him at all. At this thought, Li Qin found himself longing even more for his past life. Was it longing for his son, or nostalgia for that lofty, admired status? The chance to relive life and make amends felt undeniably good, but starting from scratch was daunting. Now he's just a minor clerk with modest means, a far cry from his former glory. No matter, Jiang Huayan would arrive shortly. Once she helps me win over Director Gao, I'll sell the Beijing property to fund my comeback. 6. With my past life's experience, I'm confident I can reclaim my glory within a decade. Li Qin didn't buy a single word about Jiang Huaiyan's supposed marriage that his mother and sister mentioned. This was clearly the Jiang family's face-saving charade after the humiliation of my broken engagement. I can't speak for other things. Li Qin was absolutely certain about Jiang Huaiyan from their past life. She was the kind of woman who'd give her whole heart and soul once she committed to someone. That's why, given a second chance at life, Li Qin chose to remarry Jiang Huaiyan even if it meant keeping his first love Tang Yiru as a mistress. No one could be a better wife for me than Jiang Huaiyan. Tang Yiru sat across from me with a beaming smile, beckoning me over. Miss Jiang, do try this coffee. They use Brazilian imported beans, hand ground. The flavor is exceptionally rich. I was utterly exasperated, completely baffled by what this couple was scheming. Just my luck, getting ambushed by Tang Yiru while shopping for daily necessities. Tang Yiru took a sip of coffee, gazing at me hesitantly. Sister Jiang, I've been waiting here for days. When you didn't come to our place last time, I thought you might have lost the address card and would return here. Never imagined I'd actually run into you. Our child with brother Qin is 4 now. You're welcome to visit anytime. What happened before was our fault, but love itself isn't wrong. We'd really appreciate your blessing. Oh, got it. Tang Yiru must be trying to obscure the timeline, making me think she got pregnant with Li Qin's child again after the abortion. But she probably doesn't know. Just yesterday, Li Qin confronted me and outright demanded that I shouldn't make things difficult for Tang Yiru even after marrying into the Li family, just like how Yiru was willing to abort her pregnancy for my happiness. I can't betray such a devoted woman, so Jiang Huaiyan, you'll be the first wife while Yiru takes the secondary role. Even her children will call you mother. This is quite common in Xiangqing. What accomplished man doesn't have multiple wives? I expect you two to coexist peacefully. I knew these two were unhinged in my past life, but never imagined they'd be this deranged, especially when Tang Yiru's son, who was sitting nearby eating cake, suddenly collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. My duty as a doctor compelled me to rush over and administer first aid without a second thought. The child clearly had laryngeal edema caused by an allergic reaction and needed to be taken to the hospital immediately. As I frantically administered aid, Tang Yiru, who had been sitting composed moments ago, now collapsed into the arms of the rushing man like a weeping willow, fragile, trembling, and utterly distraught. Qin Ji, save our son. I only wanted him to meet Sister Jiang earlier, but she deliberately fed him mangoes. I made it crystal clear that Kiki is allergic to mangoes. Li Qin's eyes burned with murderous fury, his glare so intense it seemed he wanted to tear me limb from limb. Without a word, he lunged forward, raising his hand to strike. As he stared in disbelief, I seized the pressure point on his wrist and pressed hard. The pain drained all color from Li Qin's face, leaving him drenched in sweat. You've got to be kidding. Don't you know how tough it is for us medical students? During lectures, our professors expect us to be able to carry a whole ox. Jiang Huaiyan, laying hands on a child, you're despicable. I never realized what a malicious woman you were. It seems I'll have to give you the cold shoulder for a while, otherwise. Li Qin kept rambling. I couldn't take it anymore and yelled, shut up, get him to the hospital, now. While the doctors were performing emergency resuscitation, before I could leave, Tang Yiru grabbed my sleeve in tears, demanding an explanation. Not long after, Li Qin's mother and sister barged in again. Oh my precious grandson, grandma's heart is breaking. Li Mena glared at me with pure hatred. Li Qin held the softly sobbing Tang Yiru, comforting her gently. Tang Yiru looked at me in alarm, then quickly hid herself in Li Qin's arms again. Li Qin's face hardened, and he snapped, Jiang Huaiyan, apologize. I couldn't be bothered with that crazy couple, so I got up to leave, but Li Qin suddenly grabbed my arm. Amid the struggle, a puzzled voice came from behind, Director Jiang. What are you doing here? The department is waiting for your meeting. I turned to see a group of interns led by Xiaoyang passing by, quickly called for help to separate those troublesome Li family members and seized the chance to slip away. Li Qin's puzzled retort came from behind. What did you call Jiang Huaiyan? Director Jiang. Several enthusiastic interns confirmed. That's right, Director Jiang just transferred to our hospital. He's a top graduate from Beijing Medical University and Professor Cheng's most prized protege. It was dusk, the end of the workday. Just as I stepped out of the hospital, I ran into Li Qin waiting at the entrance. Jiang Huaiyan, you've been reborn too. No wonder Li Qin was so certain. In my past life, I accidentally gashed my ankle on sharp rocks while hiking with Sister Gao. The young female doctor's deft needlework while cleaning and stitching my wound utterly captivated me. For months after returning home, I kept practicing those movements. Who knew such a tiny needle could perform such magic beyond ordinary sewing? Li Qin scoffed at my infatuation, sneering, "If you could become a doctor, pigs would fly." I looked at Li Qin with disdain. "Now that I'm a doctor, I wonder if Mr. Li's pigs are flying yet." Li Qin's face flushed slightly, and he immediately launched into an accusation. "Jiang Huayan, you clearly reincarnated ages ago. Why didn't you come find me? You know I'm about to meet Sister Gao, and you're well aware she only wears clothes made by you. You're deliberately putting me in this spot to make me beg, aren't you? Let me remind you, everything I do is for our future. Don't you want to reclaim that aristocratic lifestyle from our past lives sooner? Quit your hospital job immediately, go home, focus on dressmaking, and help care for my mother. Your years as a doctor should make you better at elderly care. Consider it an advantage." I'm utterly sick of Li Qin's entitled attitude. In my past life, I only knew him as someone who'd kick others when they're down and burn bridges after crossing them. Never realized he had this nauseatingly inflated ego too. As quitting time approached, familiar coworkers began trickling out in 2s and 3s. They eyed Li Qin and me standing by the entrance with obvious curiosity. Li Qin swaggered over to grab my hand, his face radiating smug certainty. My face turned cold as I slapped his hand away. 7. Take one more step and I'll call security. This is a military hospital. Their guards could take down 3 of you single-handedly, and spare me the narcissism. I'm married. Li Qin froze. Impossible, he scoffed. You'd never marry anyone but me. Me, how could I? She married me, my lawful, government-recognized lifelong partner. Who the hell are you to question that? I turned around in delighted surprise. Siding strode forward and clasped my hand, our fingers intertwining. Too happy to mind the company, I blurted out. Weren't you supposed to return tomorrow? The man lowered his head, his voice hoarse. Missed you, rushed back through the night. That day, Li Qin chased after us with bitter reluctance. Detained by Siting's security personnel, he was kept at a distance. All I heard was his hoarse, desperate shout. Jiang Huayan, you can only marry me, you belong to no one else. Siting caressed my fingers tenderly before scoffing. Dream on. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Every time, I can't help thinking, what a disgrace it'd be for a proper med student like me to die of exhaustion in bed. Siding always leisurely pulls the blanket over himself. Honey, you're overthinking it. Even your mentor said you're the most hardworking student he's ever taught, with excellent physical stamina. For the next 2 months, I voluntarily requested a transfer to the branch office for teaching research. By the time I returned to Shenzhen again, it was already late autumn. My colleagues say there's this strange man who stands outside the hospital entrance every single day, rain or shine. He shadows the medical staff like clockwork, arriving and leaving with their shifts. Intern Yang gave a vivid account. At first security thought he was some creep, but when they realized he just stood there dumbly, probably waiting for someone, they stopped bothering him. Director Jiang. You should have seen it. This perfectly decent-looking guy suddenly bursting into tears out of nowhere. Gave me the chills. Honestly, the very next day after Xiaoyang's gossip, I found myself cornered by Li Qin at the hospital entrance. Noticing the security guard's nervous expressions, I waved my hand reassuringly. Huayan, I was wrong. I've been so arrogant, but I've realized my mistakes now. Please come back to me, Li Qin blurted out anxiously, terrified I'd have him thrown out. He broke down in tears, pleading desperately. We were husband and wife for so long in our past life, and we even had a son together. You should marry me. We already got our marriage license. Leave him. I don't care about your past. I'll take you as my wife. I stared at him calmly, with a mix of serenity and impatience. Li Qin, after you ran out on our wedding, I was overjoyed. When I was reborn, I was terrified I might have already married you, so the moment you fled, I rushed to the city to withdraw our marriage application. Li Qin stood there, stunned. I continued speaking. My husband and I married long ago. We have an adorable daughter. She's such a sweetheart. She never has to play favorites between her father and grandmother. The whole family dotes on her beyond measure, remembering her past life. Li Qin gave a bitter half-smile, rendered speechless. With red-rimmed eyes, Li Qin said, Huayan, I know I was wrong. I only meant to keep you waiting a few years. I never meant to abandon you. I wrote you a letter every year, but I just found out Iru secretly took them back. See, it wasn't my fault. Give me another chance. Think about our son. He's so much like me. so outstanding. I'm begging you, Huion, I was truly wrong. I'm utterly disgusted by Li Qin's persistent pestering, but remembering my promise to Siding, I forced myself to hold back, otherwise. Siding said he'd rather take disciplinary action than tolerate that clingy rival in love. I laid bare every one of Li Qin's underhanded schemes. Li Qin, you just can't bear to lose the cost-effectiveness I represent, someone who manages your household while expanding your professional network. You simply realized your so-called unattainable crush turned out to be underwhelming, never matching the benefits Jiang Huiyan brought you as a wife. Thinking of that son who's your spitting image only makes me more relieved. I've grown utterly cold toward him. He's your carbon copy, equally selfish, heartless, and profit-driven, just like you. He expects the whole world to bow to his whims. Whether you admit your faults means nothing to me. In my past life, I fulfilled every duty as a wife, mother, and daughter-in-law. Marrying into your Li family was pure revulsion. You've no idea how I've regretted it, every single day and night. By the end, the sight of your face turned my stomach, still does, right this moment. Li Qin seemed to finally collapse under the weight of it all, slumping to the ground with undisguised shock etched across his face, muttering to myself, how could this? I turned away in disgust, refusing to spare him another glance. Li Qin, if I ever see you again in this lifetime, you'll regret it. You wouldn't want to experience how my husband deals with enemies. Li Qin vanished from my world completely. Taking his entire family with him, Siding asked with vinegar-dripping sarcasm, are you reluctant to let me go beat him up? I rolled my eyes at him, you idiot, he's not worth a single strand of your hair, it'd be a waste to sacrifice your future for him. The easily pacified man calmed down like a lion with smoothed fur. Much later, I still made a point of befriending Sister Gao. 8. Definitely not giving clothes. In her past life, she suffered from severe asthma and nearly died during a business trip once. I made a point to remind her. She was deeply touched and thanked me profusely. During casual conversation, she shared an amusing anecdote. A few years back, a subordinate kept gifting her trendy designer clothes at completely inappropriate occasions. The flashy yet ill-suited presents became utterly exasperating. She eventually transferred the subordinate to a remote department out of sight, out of mind. Later, I heard that subordinate went into business for himself. Shenzhen was the first city to open up during the reform era, so it was quite common for people to do that. However, he took out high-interest loans to fund his ventures, and the projects he invested in lacked any real appeal. Without support, they naturally couldn't sustain themselves. Eventually, he lost all his money. His mistress left him a letter and ran off with their son. The letter stated that the son he had raised for several years was not his biological child, but rather the love child of her and her first love. Now, the child's biological father is back, and her heart truly belongs to her first love. She thanked him for his generous acceptance of her in the past and believed he would understand why she took the remaining savings. After all, she still had a child to raise, and the child had called him dad a few times. The elderly mother learned that the grandson she'd doted on for years wasn't her own flesh and blood. The shock gave her a stroke, and she passed away within days. A broken man sat clutching letters by the churning waves, lost in thought. After that day, he was never seen again. I'd heard it before and forgotten it, like just another common story. Si Ting has been missing her daughter these past few years, always trying to coax her into staying longer during summer and winter breaks. Both sets of parents were quite displeased with this vying for attention. I once subtly brought up the idea of having another child. Siding hugged me with a smile and declined. We agreed long ago, just one child, boy or girl, she'll have all our love. Huion, you're my everything. I only have room in my heart to love one more person. Any more would stretch me too thin. Hand in hand we'll walk this life's journey, growing old together. He guards our homeland. I heal the wounded. At 82. Surrounded by children and grandchildren, Siding closed his eyes peacefully in my arms. While sorting through his belongings, I found our wedding photo tucked inside one of his treasured books. The young couple nestled together, sweet yet strangely unfamiliar. The calligraphy shows formidable strength through the paper. Huion, my eternal love. Story 2. When we got our marriage certificate, Lu Jianan told me he didn't know how to love, so for 5 years of marriage, he gave me all his passion and desire. It was an arranged marriage between families. I knew I shouldn't be greedy, and thought this would be enough, until our anniversary night. I broke his bedroom rule for the first time, secretly removing the blindfold, yet I accidentally saw the name tattooed on the dimple of his back. that was the moment I realized, Lu Jianan wasn't incapable of love, he just hid it secretly, reserving it all for my younger sister. We had a fierce argument, wishing each other dead in that moment. Little did I know, those words would prove prophetic. Both of them perished in a car crash over the cliff. Before dying, Lu Jianan, his face covered in blood, looked at me and pleaded, "Ruotang, if there's a next life, let's not be husband and wife anymore, okay?" I stared at him, laughing miserably like a madwoman. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Lu Jianan kneeling upright on the ground. "Uncle and aunt, I can't marry Ruotang. The one I love is Jiang Ying." I was taken aback, but I quickly let it go, as it happened that I didn't want to choose him this time either. Are you really sure you want to marry a Yu? Mother Lu seemed somewhat reluctant, but I calmly exchanged the marriage certificate with her. After confirming the name on it was Lu Jiayu, I smiled gently. "It's confirmed, Auntie," Mother Lu earnestly advised once more. "Fortune tellers all say Ayu won't live past 30, Ruotang. Even if Jianan disagrees with the arranged marriage, you don't have to limit your choice of husband to just the Lu family." In his previous life, Lu Jiayu did indeed die at the age of 30. At that time, his mother fainted from crying, and his father aged significantly overnight. Everyone mourned his untimely passing. He was remarkable, becoming the head of the Lu family at such a young age. Beneath his frail body lay the most resolute heart. Before his death, I had intended to see him one last time, yet from his lips came the words, "I like Jiang Ruotang. Whatever I've done, she doesn't need to know. I only wish for her happiness." He said not all love needs to be spoken aloud, not all love demands reciprocation. So year after year, apart from his assistant, no one knew, his love was buried too deep, so deep that I never noticed even a hint of it. Until his final moment when he left this world with endless regrets. So, even if it's just for this I also want to help him, at least not let him die with regrets. After a long while, I raised a smile and gently patted the back of her hand, comforting her. "Auntie, Lu Jiayu will live a long life, too." After Lu's mother left, my own mother came to ask me, "Are you really not just acting out of spite towards Lu Jianan?" She knew how much I liked Lu Jianan, childhood sweethearts. From the moment my first love blossomed, no other boy could compare in my eyes. I thought he felt the same, but I never imagined it had always been my unrequited love all along. In my past life, when Lu Jianan and I got our marriage certificate, he told me, "I've lived surrounded by schemes since childhood. I don't understand love, nor do I know how to love, but whatever I can give, I'll give to you." Married for 5 years, we were famously known in our circle as the perfect match. A loving couple. So to maintain this marriage, I was willing to teach Lu Jianan how to love me, and I could indulge his occasional willfulness, even his preferences in bed, I could tolerate. In our past life, Lu Jianan would always hand me a blindfold or use a tie to cover my eyes before bed, saying, "Tang's eyes are too beautiful, I'm afraid I might lose control and hurt you." Every time, I'd blush so hard the tips of my ears turned red. Later, once or twice, he forgot to cover my eyes, overjoyed. I wanted to see his impassioned expression, but he just coaxed me to change positions, then tenderly kissed my back inch by inch as if to appease me. We almost never faced each other, and I simply assumed it was Lu Jianan's habit, until the 5th anniversary, the first time I secretly removed my blindfold. I accidentally discovered the name tattooed in the dimple of his back. Humiliation and betrayal washed over me simultaneously. At that moment, I felt as if I'd plunged into an ice cellar. I went berserk, smashing everything in the bedroom, grabbing an ashtray and hurling it at Lu Jianan. I hurled every vile insult imaginable, wishing him dead with every fiber of my being, cursing him to the deepest pits of hell. Yet given another chance, I found myself wanting nothing more than to stay far away from him. Think carefully, Lu Jianan indeed treated me very well, except that he didn't love me. 3. The engagement banquet is scheduled for next month, Mrs. Lu said these matters would be handled by the Lu family, and I just needed to wait peacefully. She gave me the opportunity to back out at any time. I smiled helplessly and replied, "This isn't fair to Lu Jiayu, he's just sick." I messaged the Research Institute's assistant to prepare the lab equipment for me. In my previous life, after Lu Jiayu's heart transplant, I locked myself in the lab for a while researching antibacterial drugs. By the time the drugs were ready for production, he had already passed away from infection. "I hope we can make it in time this time." Suddenly, Lu Jianan sent me a message, "Come to the G Club, I need to discuss something with you." I refused directly. The first thing Lu Jianan did after being reborn was to come to my house to cancel our arranged marriage and confess his love to my adopted sister Jiangying. To make Jiangying happy, he set off fireworks all night long. The topic about them remained at the top of the trending list, with everyone praising them as a perfect match. Paparazzi even captured a video of them strolling by the seaside. Jiangying seemed tired from walking and coquettishly asked Lu Jianan to carry her. I initially thought he would refuse, but he didn't. With a doting smile, he knelt on one knee, gently massaged her ankles first, and then carried her effortlessly, his movements fluid and tender. A netizen commented, "Young Master Lu is truly head over heels for Jiangying." During this time, he stayed by Jiangying's side, dutifully trying to please her and pampering her like a little princess. He was making every effort to make up for the regrets of his past life, wanting to live a different kind of life. I don't object, as long as it doesn't involve me, but in the end, I still came to the G Club, though not because of Lu Jianan. I want to meet Lu Jiayu, and his assistant called me back. "Miss Jiang, President Lu is discussing business at GUI. If it's urgent, you can come directly." I frowned subconsciously and couldn't help but tease, "Still drinking while sick? Is he afraid death won't come fast enough?" The assistant on the other end immediately went silent. After a long silence, only a faint cough could be heard. In the end, the assistant hastily left a private room number before hanging up the phone. Surprisingly, Lu Jianan seemed certain I would come, having sent someone to watch for me here early on. The moment I showed my face, 2 bodyguards at the entrance forcibly brought me to Lu Jianan's private room. After pushing the door open, he immediately pressed hard on my shoulders, forcing me to kneel on the ground, the coldness seeping from the floor into my knees. A sense of humiliation washed over me once again. I clenched my fists and stared at the man before me. "Lu Jianan, are you out of your mind?" The private room was dimly lit. Lu Jianan bit a cigarette from the pack, lit it, took a drag, and exhaled a wisp of white smoke. "I didn't want it to come to this either. If you refuse to cooperate and won't call off the engagement, don't blame me for playing dirty." My mind instantly went blank. Lu Jianan and I had clearly cancelled our wedding long ago. Could it be that he still doesn't know? I instinctively struggled a bit, opening my mouth to explain. Lu Jianan had already walked up to me, holding a glass of wine and pinching my chin. "Ruotang, don't blame me. I just wanted to live the life I desired for once. As long as you're tainted, they won't force me to marry you." I stared fixedly at Lu Jianan, my eyes brimming with boundless sorrow. My heart ached so badly it felt like it was convulsing. The bond of childhood sweethearts, 5 years of marriage, truly trampled into the dirt. "So you're going to drug me and send me to someone else's bed?" For a moment, Lu Jianan seemed to be in a daze, his thin lips pressed tightly together, his movements pausing for just 2 seconds. In the end, he forcibly poured the wine into my mouth. "The Lu family has been busy preparing for our engagement banquet these past 2 days. I truly can't wait any longer. I found you a suitable young master from a matching family. He will take responsibility for you and marry you." "Lu Jianan, you're crazy, you've truly gone mad." I struggled desperately to break free from his grip, but there were still 2 bodyguards behind me. Their strength was overwhelming, making resistance impossible. The liquor surged violently down my throat. The intense irritation sent me into uncontrollable coughing. My face flushed crimson as spilled wine trickled down my chin, soaking the shirt on my chest, clinging tightly to my skin. "Ruotang, be good." His voice was soft as he reached to wipe the wine stain from the corner of my mouth. The bodyguard had already released me by this point. I was panting heavily, still looking somewhat disheveled, my hands weakly braced against the floor as tears welled up in my eyes from the physical strain. My red lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. "Lu Jianan, I'm not going to marry you, nor will I ever marry you." He smiled contemptuously upon hearing this. "Are you really sure, Ruotang? I know you too well. I know how much you like me, so I have no choice but to do this." He was so confident, so certain. Suddenly, Jiangying appeared at the door of the private room, clutching her skirt tightly, her gaze fixed directly on me. Her voice trembled slightly. "Sister, Jianan, you." Lu Jianan's body stiffened abruptly, his smile freezing at the corner of his lips. "Aang, why are you here? Who brought you here? This place is so dirty, you shouldn't have come." He walked helplessly to Jiangying's front, his voice gentle, movements soft and obedient. At this moment, he resembled a devout believer, his eyes overflowing with nothing but sincere affection. That was a side of him I had never seen before. Indeed, the line between love and its absence is starkly clear. I stared at Lu Jianan for a long time, an indescribable bitterness welling up inside me. People are truly strange. In my past life, after I married Lu Jianan, Jiang went abroad and never returned. He now always regrets the past, but if he had wanted to marry her back then, who could have stopped him? If he truly loved her that much, a ticket to the U.S., just over 2,000 yuan. But did Lu Jianan ever go to see Jiang Ying? No. Sometimes I don't know whether to be grateful that he was loyal enough to me in my past life, or to be glad that he was cowardly and weak. Lu Jianan coaxed Jiang Ying to go home. She pursed her lips without saying much, her eyes holding unreadable emotions as she looked at me. In the end, I was left alone at the spot. 5. The drug's effects hit quickly. The two bodyguards stood guard at the door as Lu Jianan instructed, waiting for the well-matched young master he had arranged to arrive. I bit my lower lip, leaning against the nearby table as I struggled unsteadily to stand up, but my legs felt weak, and I nearly stumbled and fell. A strong arm suddenly reached out from behind to steady me. Miss Jiang, be careful. It was Lu Jiayu's assistant. I was slightly panting, my cheeks flushed. Lu Jianan had administered a considerable dose, enough to break down my defenses. Miss Jiang, you've been drugged. I didn't respond to him, just weakly grabbed the wine bottle on the table. As I was about to press the sharp glass shard against my arm after smashing it with a bang, Lu Jiayu in the wheelchair was the first to react. He reached out and grabbed my wrist. Frowning tightly, I have a doctor on call. Don't hurt yourself. Suddenly, I froze, my pupils slightly unfocused. Lu Jiayu's hands were cold, his palms soft, making one yearn for more, to be touched by him, to be caressed by him. I couldn't resist leaning closer to his face, staring at his thin lips. Mr. Lu, may I kiss you? I blinked my eyes. Lu Jiayu's fingers trembled slightly, and his assistant behind him coughed in fright. Miss Jiang, our sir's health, perhaps. Not very. Before he could finish, I paused in my movements, eventually nodding blankly. Reason had ultimately triumphed over desire. Lu Jiayu gave his assistant a cool glance, prompting the assistant to clear his throat and excuse himself to call for the doctor. The bodyguards outside have already been taken care of by Lu Jiayu's people, including the young master of the Zhou family who was just about to enter. It took almost half an hour of struggle. The effects of the drug finally subsided somewhat, and I sat weakly on the sofa. But Lu Jiayu's brow remained tightly furrowed. I didn't know Lu Jianan would do something like this. It's my fault for putting you in such danger. I'm sorry, I didn't think it through properly. His eyes were filled with remorse. Lu Jiayu and Lu Jianan were polar opposites, one gentle, refined, and humble, the other unruly and arrogant. The heavens truly are unfair, to let such a good person die at the age of 30. Seeing my prolonged silence, Lu Jiayu's face darkened further as he said earnestly, Miss Jiang, I will make Jianan apologize to you. This matter won't be left unsettled. He will pay the price. As the words fell, I looked up just in time to catch the fleeting emotion in his eyes. Lu Jiayu was angry, because Lu Jianan hurt me. In my past life, I accidentally overheard that he liked me, and later I simply kept this matter buried in my heart. I never told anyone. At this moment, I suddenly wanted to ask Lu Jiayu why he liked me. Before I realized it, the words had already slipped out. His expression froze for a moment before he stiffly replied, Miss Jiang, what did you say? I repeated, I want to ask Mr. Lu, why do you like me? The assistant tactfully exited the private room, leaving only me and Lu Jiayu inside, his thin lips pressed into a tight line. A long moment passed without him answering my question. Instead, he asked, what about you? Why did you choose to marry me? Fortune tellers all say I won't live past 30. Lu Jiayu's voice was hoarse, as if mustering the courage to test for an answer. Because Lu Jiayu is wonderful. I leaned slightly forward from the sofa, reaching out to touch his furrowed brow. The fortune teller was wrong. Lu Jiayu, smile for me, and I promise you'll live 100 years. Everyone says you won't live past 30, but I insist you live 100 years. I want you to live. Lu Jiayu pressed his lips together, staring straight at me, his long restrained emotions seeming on the verge of breaking free. But in just 2 seconds, he masked it all perfectly again. Miss Jiang, I'll take your kind words as a good omen, I said. Lu Jiayu, trust me this once. After a long while, he finally nodded. With the experimental data results from my past life, with the backing of the Jiang and Lu families, the Research Institute can put the new antibacterial drug into production as early as next week. This time, I hope heaven will show a little more favor to Lu Jiayu. 6. The date of the engagement with Lu Jiayu is drawing nearer by the day. with only the invitations left to be sent out. And Lu Jianan actually still thinks I'm getting engaged to him, due to the drugging incident. Lu Jianan received 30 lashes of family discipline and was confined for 5 days. The moment he was released, he rushed straight to my house. When I came downstairs and saw the butler attending to him, I instinctively frowned. His complexion didn't look too good, somewhat pale. When he saw me, he immediately walked over. Tang. I instinctively took a step back. His movements paused briefly before he continued as if nothing had happened. Drugging you was reckless of me. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have used such extreme methods to humiliate you. Lu Jianan lowered his head in apology. I merely curved my lips, not a trace of warmth in my eyes. No need for apologies, Lu Jianan. It's best if we each go our separate ways from now on, and avoid crossing paths. Lu Jianan immediately shook his head and said, Tang, I was wrong. I promise nothing like this will happen again. If my brother hadn't saved you that day, I might have caused irreversible consequences. Tang. I truly know I was wrong. I shouldn't have trampled on your feelings. I know you really wanted to marry me. I know your devotion. He paused, as if steeling his resolve. After a long silence, he finally spoke in a hoarse voice. Tang, I'll marry you. Consider this my way of making up for drugging you. Suddenly, the living room fell into dead silence. I stared fixedly at Lu Jianan, unable to suppress a cold laugh in my heart. Jiangying appeared at the stairway at some unknown moment. Her eyes slightly red, her voice tinged with grievance. Jianan, what about me then? Didn't you say you were going to marry me? How can you go back on your word? A flash of panic crossed Lu Jianan's eyes as he instinctively glanced at me, but ultimately walked past me to stand before Jiangying. I'm sorry. Tang is deeply in love with me, and I don't want to hurt her. Jiangying cried harder and more miserably, making Lu Jianan even more flustered as he fumbled to comfort her. See how much he loves Jiangying. Now I seem like the villain who's ruining their relationship. I don't want to watch this drama anymore. As I turned to leave, Lu Jianan's hesitant voice came through. Tang, I won't go back on my word. I smiled mockingly, but I had already changed my mind long ago. If possible, I wish I had never met Lu Jianan in my previous life either. 7. After comforting Jiangying, Lu Jianan sat in her room, his thoughts drifting far away. He and Jiang Ruotang grew up together as childhood sweethearts. Jiang Ruotang liked him, so she had always treated him well, and after marriage, her kindness towards him only increased. She even accepted all his rules in bed without exception. He originally thought it would be fine to continue living like this, until Jiang Ruotang discovered the tattoo on his lower back. That was when he was 15 years old. In the school dance studio, he witnessed Jiangying's breathtaking dance. The ethereal silhouette behind the white gauze stirring his heartstrings. From then on, he could never forget it. Jiangying appears in his dreams day and night. He thought about confessing his feelings to her, but her eyes never held a place for him. As long as Jiang Ruotang is around, she seems to only see Jiang Ruotang, content to be her most obedient adopted sister. He was terrified of causing trouble for Jiangying, so he kept his feelings buried deep, secretly tattooing her name on the small of his back. For 10 years, he never forgot that dance, nor did he forget Jiangying. In his past life, if Jiang Ruotang hadn't insisted on making a scene, he thought they wouldn't have met their end by falling off a cliff together. Fortunately, he was reborn. This time he couldn't afford any more regrets, so he proposed breaking off the engagement to Jiang Ruotang and confessed his feelings to Jiangying. He tried every means to cancel the engagement, even going so far as to drug Jiang Ruotang. But for some unknown reason, his heart still felt hollow, not as joyful as expected. 30 lashes and 3 days in confinement made him realize he still wanted to marry Jiang Ruotang, even though it was Jiangying he loved. Jianan, do you really like my sister? Suddenly, Jiangying's voice pulled Lu Jianan back from his thoughts. He snapped out of his daze and met Jiangying's tearful eyes, saying with heartache, I don't like Tang, I only like you. But if you don't like her, why did you marry her? Lu Jianan pressed his lips together, not answering immediately. This was a question he couldn't even understand himself. He only knew he couldn't let Jiang Ruotang go. Since Jiang Ruotang loved him, she should belong to him. Before he could answer, Jiangying asked again, then, Jianan, what do you like about me? Hearing this, Lu Jianan's lips immediately curved into a smile. He couldn't wait to share his secret with Jiangying, saying, when I was young, I accidentally saw you rehearsing in the dance studio. and since then, I could never forget you. You could say it was love at first sight. After saying this, Jiang Ying's expression changed slightly as she stared fixedly at Lu Jianan. The love in her eyes was practically overflowing, but she only found it ironic and ridiculous, because she couldn't dance at all. For a fleeting moment, Lu Jianan caught a glimpse of disgust flashing through her eyes, but upon closer look, Jiang Ying's lips curled slightly upward, reverting to her usual gentle and delicate demeanor. Jianan, thank you for liking me. 8. There are only 5 days left until the engagement banquet. The experiment for the new antibacterial drug is progressing smoothly, and a suitable heart is being matched simultaneously. I had just taken off my goggles and stepped out of the lab when I saw Lu Jiayu waiting outside. He was sitting in a wheelchair, and as the temperature in Beijing had dropped, a blanket was draped over his knees. His face was still pale, but at least it looked better than when we first met. There was a bit more color in his cheeks now. I leaned down closer to him and smiled gently. It seems my medicine still works, Mr. Lu. I'm spending a fortune to keep you alive. How about repaying me with your hand in marriage? Lu Jiayu's ear tips instantly turned red. He covered his lips with his hand, cleared his throat, and turned his face away. Then he signaled his assistant behind him to hand me the invitation. I naturally took it over. Only then did he respond with a word, all right. I chuckled softly, and after opening the invitation, my gaze lingered slightly upon seeing our names side by side. A surge of indescribable emotion welled up in my heart simultaneously. In my past life, the engagement banquet between me and Lu Jianan was almost entirely arranged by his mother and mine. The Lu family provided a substantial betrothal gift, but compared to Lu Jiayu in this lifetime, it wasn't even 1/10,000th of what he offered. He nearly gave me all of his family's assets. I recognized his handwriting. When I first received the invitation, I had even complimented the person who wrote it, never imagining that person would be Lu Jiayu. I couldn't begin to imagine Lu Jiayu personally writing down my name alongside Lu Jianan's. What's on your mind? Is it sincere blessings or full of regrets? Seeing my prolonged silence, Lu Jiayu thought there was an issue with the invitation and asked worriedly, is there something wrong with how it's written? This is my first time writing. I don't have much experience. My mother suggested leaving it to the professionals, but I thought, doing this kind of thing myself would be more meaningful. He frowned, and even his assistant couldn't stand it anymore. Lu Jiayu held a high position, even with his frail health. He had never bowed his head to anyone, yet he was always so humble and cautious with me. Just because you like me, Miss Jiang, Mr. Lu spent days writing the invitation, even if you don't like it. I never said I didn't like it, I calmly interrupted him, then turned my gaze to Lu Jiayu. Ayu's handwriting is very beautiful. As I finished speaking, I flashed him a smile. Only then did Lu Jiayu's tense expression relax, his eyes gradually filling with amusement. Just as he was about to speak, an uninvited guest arrived at the lab. Bro, what are you doing here? 9. Lu Jianan's suspicious gaze fell upon Lu Jiayu until his peripheral vision caught sight of the invitation in my hand. Then he raised an eyebrow and said, you could have just sent an assistant to deliver the invitation. Brother, you're not in good health, there's no need to push yourself. He walked past Lu Jiayu. When he familiarly tried to take my hand, I avoided it, leaving his gesture hanging mid-air. Tang, Lu Jianan, perhaps you should look at the name on the invitation first. I handed the invitation to Lu Jianan. The marriage between the Lu and Jiang families has been the talk of the town lately. How could Lu Jianan be so oblivious? Even now, he hasn't realized that the person I'm engaged to isn't him. Lu Jianan might have sensed something was amiss, finally willing to open the invitation for a glance. His expression instantly stiffened the next second. When he clearly saw the names on it, he looked at me in disbelief. You're marrying Lu Jiayu, Jiang Ruotang. Have you lost your mind? Everyone says Lu Jiayu won't live past 30, and you still want to marry him. Are you prepared to be a widow in all but name? He growled, his face flushing crimson. Lu Jiayu sat in his wheelchair, his sharp dark eyes flickering with complex emotions as he restrained the surging turmoil within. But in the end, he remained silent. In this relationship, he was too humble, not even daring to harbor the slightest hope. I wish he could say to Lu Jianan, Jiang Ruotang is my fiancée, your sister-in-law. Yet he looked at me, the light in his eyes gradually faded. Jiang Ruotang, I know you're angry with me, but you can't use your lifelong happiness to spite me, Lu Jianan said through gritted teeth, and I just said calmly, I'm not being spiteful. Lu Jianan, I've told you many times, I won't marry you, and I don't love you anymore. You're just too full of yourself. You like Jiang Ying, so I'm stepping aside. so I'm going to marry you, and you stay out of it, okay?" The moment the final words fell, Lu Jianan stood frozen in place, his eyes bloodshot. His lips parted slightly, his expression full of shock. He couldn't believe these words had come from my mouth. Even more unbelievable was that the person who once cherished him above all else no longer loved him. After a long silence, he clenched his teeth and said stubbornly, "You're lying to me, Jiang Ruotang, you're lying to me." I didn't respond to him anymore. Is it me deceiving him, or is he deceiving himself? He knows it perfectly well in his heart. 10. Lu Jianan tore up the invitation and left. He still refuses to believe that this engagement banquet truly has nothing to do with him, but I'm not obligated to explain anymore. In this lifetime, he chose the path he always wanted to take, so he shouldn't regret it. Actually, Kanan was right. After a long silence, Lu Jiayu finally spoke up. He looked at me with an inscrutable gaze. This time, I didn't say anything more. "Actually, I'm somewhat disappointed." Lu Jiayu didn't believe he could survive. So likewise, he never believed in me either. On the way sending me back, Lu Jiayu kept glancing at me from the corner of his eye, but I never looked at him, just calmly gazed out the window until the car stopped outside the Jiang family villa. As I was getting off the car, Lu Jiayu finally spoke again, asking in a low voice like a child who had done something wrong, "Ruotang, are you angry with me?" I pressed my lips together without speaking and turned my face to look at him. Lu Jiayu said earnestly, "Ruotang, if I've made you angry, it's my fault, but please believe me, it was unintentional." I asked, "Lu Jiayu, don't you believe I can keep you alive?" He froze. Suddenly, I let out a low chuckle. "I understand now, Lu Jiayu, the engagement banquet is in 5 days, you can cancel any time. This time, the choice is yours." After saying that, I got out of the car and left. I knew Lu Jiayu was watching me the whole time, but I didn't look back. Thinking oneself infallible seems to be a common flaw of all people. Lu Jianan is no exception, and neither am I. I thought I could help him. I thought that by marrying him, he would have no regrets, yet it seems I never asked whether Lu Jiayu was willing. 11. The Jiang family villa was brightly lit. The moment I entered the foyer, I saw Lu Jianan kneeling stiffly before my mother, just like the day he was reborn. Only that time he was begging to cancel our marriage. But this time it's exactly the opposite. "Auntie, I was immature back then, I shouldn't have insisted on canceling the arranged marriage with a Tang. All the faults are mine, but you can't let a Tang marry my brother. His affair with Jiang Ying has become public knowledge recently, and mother has long been disappointed in him." Even though she wasn't entirely satisfied with my marriage to Lu Jiayu at first, he later proved himself in every possible way. Every detail of this engagement banquet was personally overseen by him. My mother could clearly see who genuinely cared for me. Just as she frowned and was about to send Lu Jianan away, she looked up and saw me. I smiled and told my mother, "I'll handle this." Mother nodded and went upstairs. The living room was left with only me and Lu Jianan. He looked at me, propped himself up from the table with his right hand, and stood up, having knelt for a while. His knees were somewhat numb, and he almost lost his balance. I frowned. I thought I had made myself clear enough. "What are you doing coming to my house again?" Lu Jianan froze, his gaze turning somewhat resentful. "Tang, I only want what's best for you." "What's best for me?" I let out a mocking chuckle, then raised my eyes to stare at Lu Jianan as I stepped closer to him. "Lu Jianan, don't you like Jiang Ying? Now that you've gotten your wish, we've called off the engagement, you're free to marry Jiang Ying. What exactly are you still unhappy about?" As soon as my words fell, Lu Jianan's breath hitched slightly, his expression blank for a moment. I don't know. I thought it should be like this too, but I can't watch you marry Lu Jiayu." He stared at me with piercing eyes, glowing red in their depths. I just found it hilarious. That's just how Lu Jianan is, heaven's favored son who acts willfully without consequence, knowing someone will always clean up his messes. Nor does he ever understand the concept of empathy. I will always remember, once when a typhoon hit the capital, Lu Jianan stubbornly craved cakes from Nanjing Street and insisted I go buy them. With no choice, I drove through the rain to get them for him, a 4-hour round trip. By the time I got home, it was already past midnight. Coincidentally that day, I'd forgotten my keys and called Lu Jianan multiple times, but he never answered. Later he explained to me that he had fallen asleep, so he didn't hear the phone, but I knew he wasn't asleep. It was just too cold and he was too lazy to get out of bed. Wanting cake was just a passing whim, but if he asks, I have to give it to him. Why? Because I like Lu Jianan. I can only search for sweetness among broken glass. Liking him is an exhausting and painful thing, but I persisted for 10 years. And I truly can't go on anymore, nor do I want to. After a long silence, I said weakly, Lu Jianan, you can't have your cake and eat it too, but you clearly like me. Choosing Lu Jiayu, isn't that just settling for second best? You've liked me for so long, how could you suddenly change? I don't believe it. Lu Jianan looked at me unwillingly, while I just curled my lips mockingly and said coldly, why don't you understand yet? I stopped liking you long ago. 12. The living room fell into dead silence. Lu Jianan pressed his lips together in prolonged silence, the pain in his eyes clearly visible. As I moved past him to leave, he suddenly raised his hand to grab my arm, his voice soft and tentative as he asked, Tang, have you also come back? I froze for a moment but didn't deny it. Lu Jianan seemed to understand instantly. The corners of his lips curled into a self-mocking arc as his fingers clenched my arm so tightly his knuckles turned white. I couldn't help but frown slightly as tears welled up in his eyes. No wonder you didn't choose me anymore, Tang, since you've also come back. You know Lu Jiayu will die at 30, why would you still choose him? Why would you choose him over me? He growled, his voice breaking toward the end as his entire body trembled. Lu Jianan's sudden outburst stirred a pang of bitterness in my heart. I'd rarely seen him cry. The only time was when he begged me on his deathbed. His face covered in blood yet still pleading with me in desperation. If there's a next life, let's not be husband and wife anymore, okay, but now you see, I've already agreed to him, already made the promise, but Lu Jianan is still not satisfied. He's asking for too much, I can't give it. Lu Jianan, you should go back. He shook his head desperately, trying to stay by my side like he used to, but Lu Jianan forgot. Only the beloved have the privilege to act willfully. I won't leave, Tang. Give me one more chance, I won't make mistakes again. Won't let you feel sad or hurt anymore. I've liked Jiangning for so many years, I thought I'd keep loving her forever, but I realized it's different. I don't know what to do either, I just know that without you, I would truly die. The more he spoke, the more pained he became, cautiously moving closer to me as he tried to take my hand. I avoided it, then looked up at him calmly and said, Lu Jianan, this was your choice. No one will wait for you in the same place forever, so you can't blame me. Nor can you go back on your word. The moment my words fell, all color drained from Lu Jianan's face. 12. Lu Jianan was asked to leave the villa, but he didn't go, stubbornly remaining standing in the courtyard. His gaze was fixed unblinkingly on the tightly shut door. Jiangning went out from home, though no one knew what she said to him. Suddenly, he went berserk, gripping Jiangning's neck with a deathly hold. His eyes bulging with fury, until a passing security guard forcibly separated them. Only then could Jiangning catch her breath. No one knows what she said to Lu Jianan, but at night, she came to me. Jiangning knocked on my door. Sister, can I come in? I raised an eyebrow, looked up at her, and nodded. There were still visible red marks on her neck, left by Lu Jianan's choking. Jiangning was someone I picked up at the school gate when we were young. She was 6, I was 8, small and soft. Just with a dirty face, I begged my mother to adopt her, to make her my little sister. All these years, I treated her well. Whatever I had, she had too. When people accused her of flaunting my name to bully others, she'd bare her teeth and fight back. I knew she wasn't exactly kind, but Jiangning has never hurt me. She obediently walked up to me and asked in a soft, gentle voice, Sister, you haven't spoken to me these past few days. Is it because of what happened at the club that day? I was startled, then smiled. No, Lu Jiayu told me that day. They were able to find me in time because Jiangning sent the message promptly. Sister, Lu Jianan is not someone worthy of entrusting your life to. I know you don't want to marry him either. That's why I've just been pretending with him. I only, halfway through her words, she paused, her eyes filling with disgust, wanted to help you get rid of his pestering. He's not good enough for you. I stared fixedly at her, pressing my lips together without speaking. In my past life, after I married Lu Jianan, Jiangning left without even attending the wedding. She only left me a wedding gift. For years afterward, we rarely kept in touch, so I never regarded Jiangning as a love rival. Whether in my past life or this one, I never blamed her. She did nothing wrong. It was Lu Jianan who was at fault. After a long silence, I asked her, What did you say to Lu Jianan? Jiangning's expression visibly stiffened before she finally tried to appease me by hooking her pinky with mine, saying, It's not important. The important thing is that annoying Lu Jianan is finally gone. I nodded suspiciously. The following days, I didn't see Lu Jianan again, and thought he had finally given up, until the day of the engagement banquet. Lu Jianan suddenly burst into the dressing room and locked me inside. He held me and cried like a child, looking even paler than a few days ago, his eyes bloodshot. He kept repeating, "I was wrong, A Tang, I was wrong. It was my blindness, I mistook you for someone else, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I failed you." Only then did I realize what Jiang Ying had said to him that day. Lu Jianan lifted his shirt, gazing at me pitifully. The tattoo on his waist had been removed, only to be replaced with my name. At that moment, I only felt Lu Jianan was pitiful and ridiculous. He begged for my forgiveness, pleaded for me to give him another chance, yet I remained silent, just calmly gazing at the boy I had loved for 10 years. Heaven truly has a way of playing tricks on people. In the end, Lu Jianan was knocked unconscious by bodyguards and dragged away. 13. The day before the engagement banquet, Lu Jiayu came to see me on his own initiative that day. He didn't say or do anything, just sat quietly in the lab watching me work all day, occasionally lending a hand. Lu Jiayu asked me out for dinner after I got off work. Actually, in our previous lives, we had almost no interaction beyond family banquets and rarely met privately. I once asked Lu Jiayu why he liked me, but he didn't answer. But that day, he gave me the answer. At 15, a breathtaking dance. When I heard these words, my heart skipped a beat. He said, "It's not that I don't trust you, I just don't trust myself, Ruotang. No one wants to live more than I do, and no one wishes for your happiness more than I do. He's just scared, terrified. If he really died at 30, what should I do? How should I spend those long years? He's afraid I'll be lonely. Afraid I'll have to face the darkness alone. Even if he could make all the preparations before his death, he's still afraid there might be something he overlooked." Only later did I come to realize, I thought Lu Jiayu and I had no connection, only because he hid it too well. The anonymous annual investment in the research institute, every thoughtful arrangement at each banquet I attended, the most satisfying birthday gift every year, even including my grand wedding in the previous life, the one-of-a-kind wedding dress, and the ring I designed myself. Lu Jianan thought this was just Lu Jiayu's deepest blessing as an elder brother, yet no one had ever imagined, hidden within this are Lu Jiayu's countless mountains and rivers. He has walked such a long road alone. Fortunately, this time, I saw it. 14. Half a month after the engagement banquet, Lu Jiayu successfully underwent a heart transplant surgery. The new medication caused no adverse reactions in him. In his previous life, his body was extremely weak. He didn't survive past the 20th day before succumbing to infection and passing away, but this time, he survived. Over 3 months, the entire Lu family wept with joy. In the hospital room, Lu Jiayu sat leaning against the bed, his gaze fixed on me. "Uncle and aunt, I can't marry Ruotang, the one I love is Jiang Ying." And after a long pause, he finally said, "Ruotang, thank you." I curved my lips slightly, leaned forward a little, and just like that time we met at the club, reached out to touch his eyebrows. "I told you, if you smile, I'll guarantee you a long life of 100 years. As the words fell, Lu Jiayu smiled. Half a year later, I saw Lu Jianan once. He hit someone while drunk driving, was sentenced to 3 years, and the once proud son of heaven fell into the mire. No one would indulge his willfulness anymore. Just like in our past life, Jiang Yingru left the country the day before my wedding with Lu Jiayu, leaving me another wedding gift. The farce was finally over, and I, Lu Jiayu, no longer walked alone. The end. Story 2. After being reborn, the first thing I did was go to the hospital to abort the child in my womb, and then I filed for divorce from Gu Jing. I didn't fight for the custody of my son, Gu Shirbai, nor did I claim other properties. All I asked for was a seaside view house in a coastal small town. The small 3-bedroom, 1-living-room apartment was decorated by me to be very cozy, and all the appliances I bought were parent-child sets. At first, Gu Shirbai thought that all of this was prepared for him and scoffed at it. It was not until he found that the pink children's room was piled high with dolls and the wardrobe was filled with beautiful princess dresses that he began to feel panicked. Both he and Gu Jing thought that I was ill, that I had gone crazy. He cried and questioned me. "Mom, I'm your own son. Why don't you even look at me? But you're so good to the daughter you imagined." He didn't know that it wasn't an imagination. I really had a beautiful and well-behaved daughter. She lived in the memories of my previous life. 1. Half a year after settling down in the coastal small town, I received a call from Gu Jing, asking me why. The process of our divorce was very uneventful, as simple as having a meal together. We both tacitly agreed that Gu Shirbai would stay in the Gu family. We didn't argue much about the custody issue. He never asked me the reason for my sudden decision to divorce and coldly completed the procedures. I thought he didn't care, just like he had never cared about the joys and sorrows of his wife, me, during all these years of our marriage. Now, half a year later, he suddenly asked me, why. At that time, I was hanging a portrait in the newly painted pink children's room. A woman was sitting on the bay window holding a little girl. Outside the window were the blue sea and rows of windmills. The golden sunlight fell on the little girl's face, masking her sickly pallor. I stared blankly at the face of the little girl in the painting. Why? I wanted to say that it was because we were supposed to have a daughter, and her name was Gu Shui. She was very beautiful and obedient, but unfortunately, she wasn't healthy. 70% of congenital heart diseases can be detected during prenatal checkups, but she happened to be among the unfortunate 30%. You had a brief fatherly love for her. But soon you would lose patience because of her frequent hospitalizations and surgeries. You would start to stay out all night, using the bad family atmosphere as an excuse. When I was exhausted from taking care of her, when I was praying outside the ICU that death would not take her away, when I signed the consent form to give up treatment alone and watched the doctor pull out her oxygen tube. You would be having an affair with your mistress outside and even openly bring Gu Shui with you, making him happily call another woman mom. But in the end, I said nothing. I just asked Gu Jing, did you have breakfast with Miss Zhou today? 1 year after settling down in the coastal small town, I met Gu Shui. At that time, I had just returned from a trip to Xinjiang. I was walking home wearily with a canvas bag on my back when I saw the figures of the big and the small standing in front of the corridor. I instinctively stopped and kept a distance from them. As time passed, I rarely thought of this father and son. They didn't like me, and my feelings for them had also faded away during the long period of disappointment in my previous life. I thought that as long as I didn't deliberately seek them out in this life, we would never meet again. It was Gu Shui who spoke first. Although he was only 6 years old, he was precocious. His words were milky but hurtful. The school organized a parent-child trip here. Grandma and Grandpa said that since I'm here, I should come and see you. This is the courtesy and grace that a Gu family member should have. I nodded silently. He really resembled Gu Jing a lot. Not only in his delicate and superior features but also in the cold look in his eyes when he looked at me. In my previous life, when I broke down at Wei Wei's funeral and when I climbed up to the 36th floor rooftop, the father and son looked at me with the same cold eyes. Gu Jing said, Xia, stop being naughty. He also said, Mom, stop being naughty. In fact, a month after the divorce, Gu Shui contacted me. He heard from someone that I had moved to this coastal small town. He specifically called and told me disdainfully. They said that after you moved to the seaside, you specially decorated a children's room and even replaced all the daily necessities in the house with parent-child sets. But I won't live with you. Don't waste your efforts. I calmly replied with an and then I heard him cheer on the other end of the phone. Wow, Aunt Zhou gave me a new game console again. Aunt Zhou is the best. Then he hung up the phone in a hurry. Obviously, my departure didn't have any impact on his life, compared with getting along with me, his biological mother. He has always preferred those games and also liked Zhou Tian, who always played games with him and gave him game consoles. But now, the coldness on his face suddenly cracked. His peach blossom eyes, which were so similar to Gu Jing's, were instantly filled with tears. He gritted his teeth and stared at me stubbornly. This time, it was my turn to look at him coldly. In the end, he couldn't hold on any longer. Before the tears fell, he turned around and tried to run away. But he tripped and fell to the ground with a thud. He lay on the ground for a while without getting up, just looking back at me. He was always like this. Every time I got close to him, he would always put on an impatient face, speak coldly to me, and show all kinds of disgust. Once my attention was slightly away from him, he would deliberately fall down or pretend to be uncomfortable, making me feel soft-hearted and helpless. But this time I watched him coldly and remained indifferent. He opened his eyes wide in disbelief, with a look of confusion, puzzlement, and sadness on his face. He burst into tears in front of me with a wow, you're a liar, a big liar. You clearly said that you would love me forever and stay with me forever. 3. Gu Jing frowned and accused me. Xia, although the child is young, he actually understands everything. You shouldn't be so cold to him. His expression was serious, and his attitude was as condescending as ever. It had always been like this between him and me. We were not like a husband and wife but more like an employee and a boss. Most of the time when he was at home, he didn't take the initiative to communicate with me. It was always me who took the initiative to report every bit of my life to him. Regarding the part about myself, he was always indifferent. Only when it came to Gusherbai would he interfere a little. He would even scold me sharply in front of Gusherbai and the servants without showing any mercy. As a result, every time he showed even the slightest displeasure, I would unconsciously reflect on myself, engage in internal struggles, and repeatedly think about what I did wrong and what needed to be improved. Now, seeing his face again, I only felt extremely annoyed. Have you forgotten what you said to me when we got divorced? He said that he hoped I wouldn't disturb Gusherbai's life in the future. Gusherbai was still young and would soon get used to living without me as his mother, and that would be the best for him. That was the longest passage he had ever said to me during the entire divorce process. Now he said matter-of-factly, I was too naive at that time. Sherbai is your only child. Mother and son are connected by heart. He needs you, and you also. I interrupted him, but I don't need him. Gu Jing was somewhat taken aback and stunned. Neither he nor Gusherbai had ever seen me being so blunt. It seemed that even now he still didn't understand my determination when I left a year ago, just like he would never understand in his life that Gusherbai was not my only child. I once had a daughter, even if only I knew about it. On the day of my rebirth, I dreamed that Weiwei was crying, and she also called me a liar. She said, "Mom, you promised me that after I'm gone, you would live well." I felt so sorry for her crying. I promised her that this time, Mom would definitely do it. I could only fulfill one of the promises I made to her and Gusherbai. For once, my love for Gusherbai was no less than that for Weiwei. He was the child I gave birth to after going through great hardships, the flesh and blood that came from my body. I once eagerly anticipated his arrival, when he couldn't speak yet. As long as he gave me a sweet smile, I could forget all the hardships and pain of being Mrs. Gu. At that time, I was willing to give everything, even my life, to him, as long as he could grow up happily and healthily. Gu Jing didn't love me. The story between him and me was very ordinary. We were childhood sweethearts who grew up together. When we reached the right age and didn't have suitable partners, we were matched up by our elders. I once felt uneasy because of this ordinariness. During my school days, I had witnessed what Gu Jing was like when he was in love with someone. The young Gu Jing was much more energetic and cheerful than he is now. Every time I saw him, he seemed to be smiling. He would smile indifferently when he was scolded, smile triumphantly when he won a basketball game, and smile with joy when he saw the girl he loved. When his peach blossom eyes smiled, they curved into the shape of a crescent moon, like the warm winter sun, making people's hearts flutter and fall in love at first sight. At that time, he would send the breakfast he made with his own hands to the girl he loved early in the morning regardless of the severe cold or intense heat. He would release sky lanterns all over the sky for her, and he would arrange flowers all over the playground and loudly express his love in front of everyone. He was passionate and crazy. That girl was a top student. She won awards in various physics competitions all the way and skipped grades early to go abroad to continue pursuing the truth of physics. After that, Gu Jing seemed to become indifferent to everything. Before the wedding, I once asked Gu Jing if we would really be happy. He answered me, "We will." Love made me blindly ignore the indifference in his tone at that time. I comforted myself that people would always grow up and become more composed, and the way he loved someone would also become more composed. It was not until Zhou Tian appeared by his side, a young and beautiful game planner, then I realized that there was only one way for Gu Jing to love someone. He began to smile when replying to WeChat messages, to pay attention to the lipstick shades that he had never cared about before, to study women's perfumes, and to accompany the other person to stay up late to test the newly launched games. When I found his company nervously because he didn't come home all night, he was having breakfast with another woman and carefully peeling an egg for her bit by bit. That was a treatment I had never enjoyed. At that time, I thought it didn't matter if Gu Jing didn't love me. At least there was someone in this family who loved me. At least Gusherbai loved me. At that time, I didn't know that Gusherbai didn't love me as much as I thought. This child would later break my heart piece by piece. 5. That day ended unhappily. With the tempers of Gu Jing and Gusherbai, I thought they would definitely not come again. Unexpectedly, the next day, Gusherbai appeared downstairs of my house again, carrying a small school bag. This time, he was alone. When the property management contacted me, I was painting. On the beautiful grassland of Ely, a little girl in a princess dress was running freely. I didn't have any photos or videos of Weiwei. I was afraid that as time passed, one day I would forget what she looked like. So, what I did most often was to draw her bit by bit as I remembered her. from when she was a baby to the age of 5 when her life was frozen in time. I drew a lot, and they filled every corner of my house, but then I thought, how could my Weiwei only be in the hospital bed? So, I would go on trips every once in a while to take pictures of beautiful scenery and then draw her together with these beautiful landscapes. I was drawing this one a bit slowly. When I was riding a horse in Xinjiang, I hurt my right shoulder. It was still a bit difficult for me to raise my hand, so I hadn't finished this painting even after a month of working on it on and off. That was the first time I rode a horse. When I chose that white horse, the young man in the horse team hesitated and tried to persuade me, saying that this horse had a bad temper, it bullied strangers, and it had thrown several people off. I smiled and said it didn't matter because the white horse was really beautiful. As a result, when the group was halfway through the journey, the white horse indeed threw a tantrum. It suddenly knelt down on its front legs and threw me onto the grass. Everyone in the same team was startled. When a little girl's mother came to help me up, the little girl gently helped me pat the grass debris off my face with her small hand and asked me sweetly in a soft voice, "Auntie, does it hurt?" Later, I took a lot of photos for her and her mother. She reminded me of Weiwei, but in fact, the farthest place Weiwei had been to in her previous life was this coastal small town. At that time, her health was slightly better, and I planned a family vacation, but Gu Jing said he was busy. And Gu Shirbai said he wanted to participate in the testing of a new game in Gu Jing's company. In the end, only my daughter and I came here. Those few short days were peaceful and wonderful. During the day, I taught her to draw in the room, and in the morning and evening, we went to the beach to pick up seashells together. She said that when she got better, she wanted to live in this place for the rest of her life. So, when I got divorced, all I asked for was the seaside view house. This is a home belonging to me and Weiwei, having nothing to do with Gu Shirbai or Gu Jing. I didn't want Gu Shirbai to set foot in this house at all. Without hesitation, I gave the contact information of Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai's grandparents to the property management. A few minutes later, the property management called again, saying that when he contacted Gu Jing, Gu Shirbai ran into the community and disappeared. After all, I had raised Gu Shirbai with great care. There was no way I could really let something happen to him. I sighed, put down the paintbrush, and went downstairs to look for him. I searched the whole community, sweating all over. In the end, I saw him waiting in front of my door, with a look of complacency on his face that said, "I knew you wouldn't leave me alone." I didn't say anything. When I opened the door, I let him slip in like a flash, like a proud little lion. He held his head high and began to patrol the territory everywhere. He asked me, "Which is my room? You must have bought me a game console, right? I want to go to the room and play games." I didn't answer. I asked him to sit in the living room and wait for Gu Jing to pick him up, and then I sat back in front of the easel and focused on finishing the painting. I had only painted a few strokes when I heard a loud crash coming from the children's room. I quickly walked over and saw that the painting hanging on the wall above the head of the bed had fallen to the ground. The frame was in pieces, and the knocked-over perfume liquid had soaked Weiwei's face beyond recognition. Gu Shirbai stepped on the bed and looked at me with a helpless expression. I don't like this painting. Why did you hang someone else's portrait in my room? Why are you holding her in the painting?" I knew that he might just want to take the painting down and didn't break it on purpose. I also knew that he was still a child and I shouldn't lose my temper over something he didn't understand. However, my tone of voice still couldn't help being a bit harsh. "Didn't I ask you to wait for your father in the living room? Don't touch things randomly anymore." He sensed my restrained emotions, and his expression showed a bit of vulnerability. "Before, whenever I broke something, you would always ask me first if I was hurt." I didn't answer. My gaze fell on the bed sheet that he had stepped on and dirted, and I couldn't help frowning. "Come down first." He still stood on the bed without moving, staring straight at me. "Mom, who is this girl you painted? Why did you paint her so many times? Why is every painting in the house of her?" He was still too young to hide the fear and unease in his eyes. He saw those paintings that filled the house. And the girl in the paintings had eyebrows and eyes similar to his. "Mom, why do the security uncle and the uncles and aunts living here all say that you don't have a son, but only a daughter?" I said, "I'm your son," but they said I'm a liar. Even when I showed them our group photo, they still didn't believe me. "This is my room, right?" He jumped off the bed, as if to prove something. He opened the wardrobe, but was stunned when he saw the wardrobe full of princess dresses. "Why did you buy so many dresses? Where are my clothes? Why aren't there any of my clothes?" He rummaged around in the wardrobe, and finally stared at me with wide eyes. Finding nothing, hoping to get an answer from me that could soothe him. I looked at his eyes gradually filled with tears and remained silent. His tears fell one by one in my silence. Suddenly, he went crazy, crying and pulling out the princess dresses in the wardrobe one by one and throwing them on the bed. He swept all the dolls on the bay window to the ground, unreasonably trying to assert his status. Why did you put someone else's dresses in my wardrobe? I don't like dolls. Why did you put so many dolls in my room? I don't like this bed and quilt. This is a bed for girls. I don't like pink. Why did you make my room this color? Why are you holding another girl? Why did you hang the painting of you and someone else in my room? I don't like her. I hate her. Hate her. This time, I couldn't bear it anymore. Goosher bye. Get out. This isn't your room. There isn't a room for you here. 7. When Gu Jing came to pick him up, Gu Shirbai said to him in a panic, Dad, Mom has gone crazy. She keeps telling everyone that she only has a daughter. 8. When Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai came again a month later, they both became very cautious in their attitudes. Gu Jing said, Xia, you're ill. He asked me to have a video call with my relatives and friends, and let them tell me that the daughter I painted, the daughter I told all the neighbors I loved deeply, didn't exist and was just my imagination. They took out the family photo album and forcibly pulled me to recall the past with them, but our past was too meager. Just like this photo album that couldn't be filled, it was almost impossible to find a few group photos of the three of us. Most of the photos recorded Gu Shirbai's growth, with some photos of me and him mixed in, as he gradually grew up. Perhaps it was the nature of boys that made him get closer to the person in the family who had more authority and could provide him with better conditions. He understood Gu Jing's indifference and alienation towards me, and he didn't want to take photos with me anymore. Now, they were holding that photo album with hardly any photos of me, recounting every bit of the past, desperately trying to convince me that I had never had a daughter. I sneered, Are you saying that I'm crazy? Gu Jing shook his head, No, Xia, you're just ill. He took out a surgical consent form, held my hand, and his tone was even a bit choked up. Xia, why didn't you tell me that we originally had another child? I looked at him in silence. Guilt and regret appeared on his face. Regarding Zhou Tian, I can explain, it's not what you think. He said that he only paid more attention to Zhou Tian because he cherished her talent, and being good to her was just a means to win over his subordinates. His tone was gentler than ever before. Xia, I know that you were impulsive and had an abortion and divorced me because you misunderstood the relationship between me and Zhou Tian. Afterwards, you regretted it, so you imagined that you had a daughter. Xia, it's my fault. I didn't maintain a proper distance with my subordinate, which made you misunderstand and feel sad, and caused you to be so seriously ill. We were husband and wife for 12 years in the previous life. And I had never seen Gu Jing speak to me in such a lowly manner. I stared at him in surprise, as if I was meeting this person for the first time. You know, in the previous life, when I noticed something was wrong between him and Zhou Tian, every time I questioned and probed him, he would only coldly retort, Xia, are you crazy? Even half a year ago, when he called to ask me why, he still didn't answer my question in the end. Now, he thought I was really ill, and suddenly he could talk. For the first time, he explained his relationship with Zhou Tian to me. He said, Xia, you're ill and need treatment. Let me and Shirbai accompany you and take care of you. Okay, I told him to get out with Gu Shirbai. 9. When Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai came for the second time, they brought a psychologist with them. At that time, I had just come back from Mexico a few days ago. The doctor's surname was Lin. He took a look at my neck and his tone was as easygoing as if we were old friends who had known each other for a long time. What's wrong with your neck? I raised my hand and touched the thin purple mark on my neck and replied casually, I had a little accident when I was playing sea paragliding in Cancun a few days ago. That was the last stop of my trip to Mexico. When I was gliding in the air over the sea on a paraglider pulled by a speedboat, the rope connecting the speedboat suddenly broke. I was caught off guard and fell into the sea from dozens of meters in the air. Although I was wearing a life jacket, the rope of the paraglider strangled my neck and wrapped me and the seat together. I couldn't float to the surface at all. I gradually lost my strength due to lack of oxygen during the struggle and almost died in that sea. Fortunately, the guy driving the speedboat dived into the water in time to save me. Thinking about it now, it still feels thrilling. Dr. Lin didn't ask further. He took a look at the painting on the easel whose paint hadn't dried yet. Wei Wei was sitting on the paraglider, smiling at the blue sky and white clouds. He politely asked me if he could take a look at my other paintings. After I agreed, he carefully looked at all the paintings in my house. and then held one of them and asked me, "Can you tell me the creative idea of this painting?" It was a view of the water from an overhead perspective. Wei Wei was floating on the water face up, smiling and spreading her arms, as if welcoming and trying to embrace something. I painted this after I came back from bungee jumping in the Gandaki River in Nepal. There were quite a few tourists who went bungee jumping that day. They were either nervous or excited and sought encouragement from their companions or the staff. Only I had a calm expression. The staff joked with me in English, saying that I didn't look like I was here to have fun, but rather like I was here to commit suicide. And he didn't even dare to push me, although he said that, when he pushed me down, he didn't show any mercy at all. The wind during the rapid fall pressed against my cheeks and my eyes. The momentary feeling of weightlessness made me in a trance, as if I had returned to the end of my previous life when I jumped off the 37th floor. In fact, the memories and sensations at that time were very vague. Everything ended in just a blink of an eye, but this time, the feeling of freedom during the fall was so clear. When I was approaching the water surface, I had a hallucination. I saw Wei Wei's figure faintly appearing in the water. She smiled and stretched out her arms to me, wanting to hug me, but the moment I tried to hold her tightly, she shattered into the sparkling waves of the Gandaki River. I didn't answer Dr. Lin's question. Dr. Lin was very patient. He patiently tried to analyze the logic behind my actions. Sinclair, when you had an abortion, the baby was just an embryo that hadn't developed gender characteristics. Why did you think it was a girl? Is it possible that you projected yourself onto it? I laughed. Are you saying that I'm narcissistic? No. Dr. Lin shook his head. You're feeling sorry for yourself. Is there a possibility that you transferred your resentment towards your husband onto the child? But after you had the abortion, you regretted it, so you created an imaginary girl based on yourself. Similarly, it's not that you don't love Gusherbai anymore, you love him too much, but you also take out your anger on him. You can only pour all your love for him onto this imaginary girl, but this little girl is too dangerous for you. He let out a soft sigh. Wild riding, paragliding, bungee jumping. Sinclair, have you noticed that you're always pursuing high-risk games? This imaginary little girl is inducing you to test death. If you don't open your heart and accept treatment, the consequences will be unimaginable. Sinclair, I want to help you. Gu Jing chimed in beside him. Sinclair, accept treatment. Let us help you and take care of you. Okay. Gu Sherbai also came forward and tried to hold my hand, showing an unprecedentedly obedient attitude. I said, how could Mom suddenly not love me anymore? It turns out that you're ill. Let us help you, Mom. Can you also paint a picture for me? You've never painted for me. I interrupted him. I have painted for you. On your birthday last year, I gave you a portrait of you as a birthday gift. I was only above average in my academic performance since I was a child, and I couldn't compare with the top students that Gu Jing liked. But I had a great talent for art and was admitted to the best art academy in the country. Unfortunately, my parents always thought that I couldn't earn much money just by painting. They hoped that I would get married as soon as possible after graduating from the art academy, so that they wouldn't have to worry about me anymore and could go to live in New Zealand with my elder brother with peace of mind. I compromised, because the person they introduced to me was Gu Jing. At that time, I thought that I could still continue painting after getting married, but I soon became pregnant with Gu Sherbai. Family chores and raising Gu Sherbai gradually took up a lot of my time. Whenever I wanted to focus and paint a good painting, Gu Sherbai would suddenly start crying and making a fuss. I could only put down the paintbrush to coax him, and gradually I neglected my painting, until Gu Sherbai's 5th birthday. On a whim, I picked up the paintbrush that I hadn't used for a long time and painted a portrait of him. But he obviously liked the game console that Zhou Tian gave him better and casually threw the portrait aside. Later, I saw that painting under the small desk in his room, folded into a small square and used to prop up the table leg. 10. Gu Sherbai defended himself in a trembling voice. I didn't do it on purpose. I must have taken the wrong one. I smiled and exposed him. No, you did it on purpose. Because that day, you were dawdling and refused to take a bath. I confiscated your game console. And you deliberately did this to get back at me. You've always been like this. Whenever I don't do as you wish, you would hurt me by destroying the gifts I gave you and trampling on my kindness. Because you know that I love you and care about you. And I will be sad if you do this. You want to make me sad. Gu Sherbai's face turned slightly pale, and he stammered for a long time but couldn't say anything. 11. I raised my eyes and looked at Gu Jing. In fact, I had already seen his hidden intention of making peace. For example, In the previous life, Gusherbai's school never organized a parent-child trip, for example. With so many bodyguards and nannies in the Gu family, how could they let Gusherbai run out alone and not be in a hurry at all? Also, whether it was in the previous life or after being reborn, in fact, he hadn't worn the clothes I bought for him for a long time. From a certain day on, he, who had never bothered about his clothes before, started buying clothes and bringing them home himself. Later, I found out that all those clothes were bought for him by Zhou Tian. To make Zhou Tian happy, he never touched the clothes I bought for him again, and even changed his perfume to the leather scent that Zhou Tian liked. But these few times when he came to see me, he specifically wore the clothes I bought for him and sprayed the woody perfume that I preferred. I just didn't care. I didn't care why he suddenly wanted to make up with me after a year. I also didn't care why, since I had already made room, he didn't just bring Zhou Tian into the house directly. Because I didn't care, I didn't expose it. It's just that he had been so arrogant in front of me for so long. Even when trying to make peace, he couldn't let go of his pride. He only thought of using Gusherbai to make me soft-hearted and take the initiative to come back to him. Now, he thought I was ill. It seemed that he had suddenly found an excuse to lower his head to me. His attitude changed 180 degrees. In an instant, he learned to be gentle and accommodating, as if because I was a patient, I suddenly became a fragile item that needed his protection. All his actions had a great and selfless reason. For my own good, he performed so sincerely that I almost believed him. Gu Jing, you said that there's nothing between you and Zhou Tian. Then why did you spend a lot of money to find high-quality jade? Because she is prone to getting sick. Carve a Buddha statue with your own hands, and then kneel step by step up the 81 steps of Nanshan Temple and ask a senior monk to consecrate it. Even when Wei Wei was so seriously ill in the previous life, as her father, he had never done such a thing for her. Why did you use working overtime as an excuse to spend Valentine's Day with her? Why did you hug her and kiss her? Gu Jing's face also turned ugly. I smiled. Are you wondering why I know all this so clearly? It was your son who told me. The first time I heard the name Zhou Tian was from Gusherbai. Suddenly, one day, he started frequently telling me how nice Aunt Zhou is, what Aunt Zhou and Dad did together again. Mom, why can't you be as nice as Aunt Zhou? At first, he might have said these things unintentionally, but later, he was clearly doing it on purpose. As I said, he was precocious. After noticing that I would feel sad every time I heard the name Zhou Tian, whenever I did something that displeased him, he would deliberately bring up Zhou Tian. I knew he liked Zhou Tian and those video games, but it's not certain that he really wanted her to be his mother. He just took pleasure in using the revelation of his father's intimacy with another woman as a way to punish me and confront me, especially after I had Wei Wei in my previous life. His behavior became even more excessive. During my pregnancy, he would casually say, "Mom is fat and ugly, she's not as thin and pretty as Aunt Zhou." During my lactation period, he would nonchalantly say, "Mom's belly is so flabby with so many stretch marks, her clothes are so messy, stained with milk, and she smells of milk. It's so disgusting, no wonder Dad sleeps in a separate room from you." When I was accompanying Wei Wei during her surgery and hospitalization, he would often tell me that Gu Jing gave Zhou Tian this today and accompanied her to do that tomorrow. He would excitedly tell me how amazing Zhou Tian was, that she designed a new game again, and that he had a new game to play. Unlike me, who was so useless, after returning from a business trip with Gu Jing, he would tell me where he, Gu Jing, and Zhou Tian went and what they played. He said that others thought they were a family of three. He would show me the photos taken of the three of them in a boastful manner and ask me if they were well taken. He thought he was hiding his true feelings well, but every time he said these things, I could clearly see the malice in his eyes. I first experienced the innocent malice of a child from my own son. He was like a devil, repeating the incantation that drove me crazy in my ear every day. I knew that at that time, many nosy relatives and friends would maliciously provoke him, saying that with the second child, I would only love Wei Wei and not love him anymore. I also asked myself whether I was really biased between him and Wei Wei, which led to his wayward behavior, but after much thought, I was sure that I wasn't. Even though I was constantly shuttling between the hospital and home for Wei Wei, I would ask Gusherbai about his well-being every day, carefully inquire with the nanny whether he ate properly, and help him check his homework. Unless Wei Wei was having surgery, I would attend his parent-teacher meetings, even if I hadn't slept for 48 hours in the hospital and was extremely exhausted. In fact, before Wei Wei was born, he didn't like my company. He always thought I was nagging and annoying, that I had nothing better to do than to hover around him. He preferred to stay alone in his room playing games. But when I stopped focusing on him and spent the attention and time he didn't want on his sister, he got upset. He could reject and not cherish it, but I wasn't allowed to give it to anyone else. 13. I didn't know who he inherited this selfish trait from. It wasn't until after I was reborn and left Gu Jing without hesitation, yet he shamelessly came to reconcile, that I was sure he was like his father, the man who, when I was exhausted by Wei Wei's illness and my heart was broken by Gu Shibai's constant intentional provocations, was busy having an affair and figuring out how to divorce me. Didn't I want to get a divorce too? I'm not a masochist, nor am I infatuated to the point of not being able to live without Gu Jing, but for Wei Wei's sake, I couldn't. The cost of Wei Wei's treatment couldn't be afforded by an ordinary income. However, if I divorced and left Wei Wei with Gu Jing, given his attitude of preferring to spend time with Zhou Tian rather than visiting Wei Wei in the hospital, I couldn't rest assured. Moreover, Wei Wei's heart condition might not be able to withstand the shock of a family accident, so I could only grit my teeth and hold on. I often wondered why Gu Jing could love Gu Shibai but not Wei Wei. Wei Wei was so beautiful and well-behaved, facing the pain of illness and countless surgeries. She would endure until she couldn't bear it anymore before crying, even when she was scared being alone with the nurse in the hospital. She would always urge me to get more rest. She missed her father and brother, confused as to why they never came to see her, but she never asked or complained. At such a young age, she was heartbreakingly sensible. It wasn't until after Wei Wei died that I saw the long, prepared divorce agreement in his study. Then I understood that her existence prevented him from proposing divorce to me, a man who proposed divorce to his wife while his daughter was on the verge of death. He knew how much public outcry he and Zhou Tian would face. He couldn't afford to lose that face. Since he couldn't get rid of me, he took his anger out on Wei Wei. Gu Shibai saw how indifferent Gu Jing was to Wei Wei and followed suit. Even though Wei Wei liked him as a brother, he didn't want to stay in the hospital a little longer to accompany his poor sister. Even when I forced him to come sometimes, he would just sit there with his head down, playing games, and ignore Wei Wei when she talked to him. Even worse, when I wasn't around, he would deliberately provoke Wei Wei, just like he did to me. 14. The day Wei Wei passed away was her 5th birthday. I specifically called Gu Jing and begged him to come home in the evening so that our family of 4 could celebrate Wei Wei's birthday properly. The birthday gift I prepared for Wei Wei was a painting. It was the same one that I painted again after being reborn and hung in the children's room, but was later destroyed by Gu Shibai. I was holding her and sitting on the bay window. Outside the window was the blue sea and rows of windmills. The golden sunlight fell on her face, covering up her sickly pallor. Wei Wei loved it and kept it by her side, looking at it from time to time, but until it was time to light the candles on the cake, Gu Jing still hadn't come back. I saw the disappointment in Wei Wei's eyes. I went to the kitchen to call Gu Jing, but no one answered no matter how many times I called. When I returned to the living room, still thinking about how to explain to Wei Wei why her father was absent from her birthday, I heard the 11-year-old Gu Shibai looking at the painting with contempt and disdain, saying viciously, "It's so ugly, her face is as white as a ghost. In our school, a girl as ugly as you would only be hated. No wonder Dad doesn't want to celebrate your birthday with you." Wei Wei's face turned deathly pale. I could hardly believe my ears. Had Gu Shibai been speaking to Wei Wei so meanly when I wasn't around? In all these years, I had never laid a hand on Gu Shibai, but this time, I couldn't control myself and slapped him, holding his cheek. He looked at me in shock and shouted at me angrily, "Dad went on a date with Aunt Zhou. He won't come back to celebrate this sickly girl's birthday. It's no use how many times you call. From now on, I won't celebrate her birthday either. Dad will divorce you, marry Aunt Zhou, and I'll be with them as a family of 3. I don't want this sickly girl, and I don't want you either." Wei Wei collapsed on the spot, clutching her chest. When I carried her limp body into the ambulance that day, I desperately prayed that God would be merciful one more time, but after the doctor's rescue, I was still told that Wei Wei's physical condition couldn't withstand another surgery, and they advised me to give up. Looking at the suffering Wei Wei in the hospital bed, my mind went blank, and I felt extremely lost. I kept calling Gu Jing, but he never answered. Later, I found out that he was in Zhou Tian's bed. In the end, I signed the consent form to give up treatment alone and watched as the doctor removed Wei Wei's oxygen tube and turned off all the medical equipment. Gu Jing was the last one to arrive at the hospital. Even Gu Jing's parents and the funeral home staff had already arrived by the time he rushed in. He questioned me, asking why I didn't wait for him and why I had unilaterally given up treatment. I thought to myself, what was there to wait for him for? Wait for him to get out of his mistress's bed and come to Weiwei's bedside to put on an act of being a loving father, just to avoid being criticized for not being there when his daughter was on her deathbed. Should my Weiwei suffer a few more hours for the sake of his reputation? I looked at him and then at Gu Shirbai standing far outside the hospital room door. The expressions on their father-son faces were equally indifferent. One was busy having an affair while his biological daughter was on the verge of death, not even spending her last birthday with her. The other had maliciously provoked his own sister to death. Why could they be so calm? Why didn't they shed a single tear? I suddenly found the father-son pair terrifying. 15. I know these are all things that happened in my previous life. They haven't happened yet in this life, and they will never happen again. Perhaps I shouldn't judge the 6-year-old Gu Shirbai for crimes that haven't occurred in this life, but I can't help it. I gently pulled my hand away from Gu Shirbai's and smiled at Dr. Lin. Dr. Lin, you're wrong. The little girl in the painting isn't a dangerous presence for me. Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai are. If one day I go crazy or die, it will definitely be these two who push me towards madness and death. 16. When Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai came for the third time, their attitudes became tough again. At that time, I was about to leave for Iceland. Just as I was pulling my suitcase to enter the elevator, I was stopped by Gu Jing, who came out of another elevator. He threatened me, Xia, if you still refuse to accept treatment from a psychologist, I'll have no choice but to force you into a psychiatric hospital. I looked at him mockingly. In what capacity do you plan to force me to be admitted? We're divorced, and you're not my guardian. We have no relationship left. Ex-husband, Gu Shirbai interrupted. Well, can't I do it then? I'm your son. I looked down at him. Too bad you're still a minor. They were helpless against me. I turned to leave. But Gu Jing reached out to stop me again and accidentally tore the necklace around my neck. The necklace fell to the ground, and the cover of the pendant came off, revealing a small photo of Weiwei that I had printed and put inside. Gu Jing stared at the small portrait in a daze, and finally lost his temper. Since you decided to have an abortion on your own, you shouldn't regret it. I clenched the broken necklace tightly with my trembling hands, refusing to show any weakness, and slapped him in return. He understood nothing, he knew nothing. After being reborn, I also hesitated and struggled, but at the end of my previous life, Weiwei lay in the hospital bed, crying and saying to me, Mom, I feel so rotten, it hurts so much. If there's a next life, can I not be born into this world? I really couldn't help it. I put the broken necklace in my pocket, without looking at Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai again, pulled my suitcase, and entered the elevator. 17. In winter, Iceland exudes an extreme sense of desolation. The surging waves crash against the black sand beach, and the dark sand formed by lava contrasts sharply with the white waves, waterfalls, volcanoes, glaciers, fjords. This small island boasts a variety of unique landforms and wonderful landscapes. Due to its proximity to the Arctic Circle, the daylight hours in winter are very short, the sun hovers near the horizon, and the morning glow seamlessly connects to the evening glow. The pink-purple belt of Venus in the sky can last for a long time. When I came, I brought a lot of expensive photography equipment. After landing at Keflavik Airport, I rented a car and planned to drive around the island to chase the aurora borealis. Unfortunately, either the aurora KP index was below 1 on clear days, or the weather was too bad with thick clouds, and I failed to capture any photos of the aurora. On the last day of my trip, the weather forecast predicted a blizzard the next evening, and the roads might be closed for several days. I had to give up the remaining itinerary. I was unwilling to leave without capturing the aurora, although the aurora KP index was still only 1 that day. Since the weather seemed clear, I decided to drive out at night and take a chance. I found an open wasteland in the wild and waited in the car until 3 a.m., but still saw nothing. Finally, I was disheartened and decided to give up. But sometimes, fate likes to play jokes. Just as I started the car to leave, the aurora appeared. The green light bands danced in the sky, flickering on and off, changing unpredictably, both magnificent and mysterious. I quickly grabbed my photography equipment, found the best vantage point, and set it up to record this gift from nature. In the temperature of more than 10 degrees below zero, I couldn't stand the cold after watching the aurora for a while. So I decided to take a nap in the car and let the equipment continue shooting automatically. The necklace that Gu Jing tore was hanging on the rearview mirror of the car, and Weiwei in the pendant was smiling at me. Looking at her face, I also smiled. Weiwei, look, Mom has brought you to see the aurora. 18. I lay in the car, looking at the dancing aurora outside the window, and it took a long time for me to fall asleep. As a result, I woke up a bit late, and it was already dawn. A strong wind had started blowing outside the car. The place where I set up my photography equipment was a bit far from the roadside where I parked. The swirling snow reduced visibility, and I couldn't even see the equipment clearly from inside the car. I calculated the time it would take to drive back to Akureyri, considering the blizzard that was supposed to come in the evening. I got out of the car and braved the wind and snow to collect my equipment. At that time, I didn't know that the blizzard time predicted by the Icelandic weather forecast wasn't always accurate, and it was common for it to arrive earlier or later than expected. When I reached the place where I set up the equipment, I found that both tripods had been blown over, and one of the cameras was nowhere to be found. Blown away by the wind, I groped around in the snow, which was several times thicker than last night, for a long time before I found the broken camera, fearing that the melting snow would damage the SD card. I quickly took out the SD cards from both cameras and put them in my pocket separately. When I finished packing my equipment and started walking back, the world around me was a sea of white, and the visibility was less than 5 meters. The car key for the vehicle I rented didn't have a car finding button. I could only carry the heavy cameras and tripods and try to make my way back to the car based on my sense of direction. I walked for a long time, much farther than the actual distance from where I set up the equipment to the car, before I realized that I had lost my way in the early arriving blizzard. I tried to figure out my direction, but I was exhausted. In the end, I had to abandon the heavy cameras and tripods, yet I still couldn't find the car. I took out my phone to call for rescue, only to find that there was no signal. I was left to search blindly in the howling blizzard alone. The raging storm grew more and more intense. The biting wind, carrying snowflakes, made it impossible for me to open my eyes. I walked slower and slower, feeling my body gradually losing heat. My limbs grew so cold and numb that I could only move forward on instinct. Finally, I collapsed in the snow. I thought I was going to die in the blizzard of a foreign land, but I wasn't afraid. Instead, I felt a sense of relief. I said in my heart, "Sorry, Weiwei. Mom didn't want to break her promise to you, but I really can't hold on anymore." In fact, Dr. Lin was right. I was indeed ill, and I had been tempting death. 19. After Weiwei died in my previous life, I suffered from severe depression, or perhaps I had already been ill since I discovered Gu Jing's infidelity, since Gu Shirbai constantly provoked me, and since I accompanied Weiwei through countless surgeries and hospitalizations. Every day, the world seemed grey to me, and everything around me was full of malice. My husband and son were so cold-hearted, and my daughter was so pitiful. I struggled desperately, exhausting myself every day, yet I still couldn't see a way forward or a glimmer of hope. But for Weiwei's sake, I gritted my teeth and persevered, pretending that everything was fine in front of her, not letting her discover the cracks in the family or the ugly truth about her father and brother. Until Weiwei's death, all the suppressed negative emotions suddenly erupted, swallowing me up like an abyss. On one hand, I told myself not to die because I had promised Weiwei that I would live well even if she was gone. On the other hand, I couldn't stop hurting myself. At first, Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai did feel guilty. They tried to hide their true feelings, but they couldn't have been completely indifferent to Weiwei's death. People are sometimes so contradictory. They try to escape their sins while also feeling compelled to feel guilty and make amends. They pretended that everything was fine in front of me, just as I had done before. Gu Jing stopped seeing Zhou Tian, and Gu Shirbai stopped saying hurtful things to me. They pretended that we were a happy family of 3, but it didn't help me at all. I always remembered the identical cold looks in their eyes when they were by Weiwei's bedside. No matter how much they smiled at me or how gentle they were, in my eyes, they were still heartless, terrifying, and loathsome, the most detestable monsters in the world. The closer they got to me, the worse my condition became. I couldn't control my crying in the middle of the night, my outbursts of temper, or my self-harm. Soon, they began to lose patience. Thinking I was an embarrassment and a burden, they reverted to their old ways. Gu Jing started staying out late again, and Gu Shirbai began his sarcastic remarks once more. The day I climbed to the rooftop of the 37th floor, Gu Shirbai shouted at me with a look of disgust, "It's all your fault that Gu Shirwei died. It has nothing to do with anyone else. There's no genetic disease in our family. If you had given her a healthy body, she wouldn't have gotten sick and died." I stood on the edge of the rooftop, stunned. Was it really my fault? It must have been something I didn't pay attention to during pregnancy that caused Weiwei to have a heart condition and suffer in this world. The thin thread that had been holding me back from death snapped at that moment. And I jumped off the 37th floor. 20. Depression doesn't heal on its own after being reborn. Even though I got a second chance at life, those negative emotions were still there. On the day of the abortion, I even hoped that I would bleed to death on the operating table and leave this world with Weiwei, but I dreamed of her. She always begged me not to die, crying. I didn't want to let her down. That day, when I got home, I saw Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai still living their lives without a care. They understood nothing, they knew nothing. Only I knew everything that happened in the previous life, only I carried all the pain, and only I remembered their sins and their hideous appearances, so I fled from those two monsters, Gu Jing and Gu Shirbai, but it wasn't enough. Those negative emotions persisted, as did the pain and the sense of guilt. I didn't want to break my promise to Weiwei, so I clung to the memory of her, constantly reminding myself of the promise I made to her and struggling against depression. That's why I decorated a children's room for her, pretending that she was with me. That's why I painted so many portraits of her, almost obsessively. That's why I traveled the world, seeing the sights for her. I tried my best to pretend that everything had changed and was getting better. I tried to pretend that I was getting rid of those negative emotions, but I still couldn't stop tempting death time and time again. Every time I engaged in those high-risk activities, I lied to myself that it was what Weiwei wanted, but in fact, it was what I wanted. Now, the death I had long anticipated had finally come. I felt at peace in the whiteout of the blizzard. Slowly, I closed my eyes. 21. Beep, 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 beep. Suddenly, the continuous honking of a car horn pierced through the blizzard where the visibility was zero. The harsh sound cut through the wind and snow and reached my ears persistently, irritating me so much that I felt annoyed. I struggled with the dark and negative thoughts in my mind for a long time amidst the unceasing car